Hello, and welcome to the Cantina Chatter Podcast. My name is Victoria, and I'm your host on this galactic adventure through all things Star Wars, film and television, toys, theme parks, video games, and more. Steve, also known as Sith Lord 229, is a longtime Star Wars toy reviewer on YouTube. He has guested on Cantina Chatter in the past, and after more than 3 years, I am super happy to have him back on the show. Steve, how's it going, my friend?
Really well, thank you, Victoria. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. We were just talking about how long it's been since you've been on here, and I can't believe it's been that long.
Yeah, it's that was an eye-opener. I thought it would definitely been more recently than that, but yeah. I mean, 4 years ago now. Well, nearly 4 years ago since Last Jedi came out. I don't know where the time's going.
Yeah, I know it's insane. That's definitely the time certainly seems to accelerate as you grow older. Is it just me?
No, it definitely does. And I think over the last year as well, it's definitely gone a little bit too fast. I expected the last 12 months to have gone really slowly, given what's going off at the moment, but no, it's going too fast for my liking.
Yeah, most certainly. I hear you there. I was thinking about my dog. My dog is now, she's going to be 7 in April, and it's just kind of like, gosh, she's like approaching middle age, right? It's like, how where does the time go? It just, you know, when you think about it in terms of your pets, it's kind of scary almost.
Oh yeah, definitely. Our 2 cats are coming up for 6 at the end of the year. So they're up now in human years in the 30s. So they're settling down now.
Totally. Well, hey, how are things going with you? How are things with the channel? What kind of content have you been up to over there at Sith Lord 229?
It's been slower than it has been in the past. Especially over the last year's been pretty good. I think over the last 12 months, I've probably had the most chance to get new content out than I have in a long time, given the circumstances surrounding the fact that we can't do much at the moment. And we're in lockdown again here in the UK, but I think we will be for probably the foreseeable future. So the plan is to try and get some new reviews out there. I've got a ton of stuff lined up. I've got a collection video in the making as well at the minute, because a lot of things have changed in the collection setup since the last time I did a video, which was last January. So that's on the way. And yeah, just keeping ploughing through the lines as they keep coming out, as I keep picking stuff up, because that's another thing that lockdown's afforded me, is that with not spending my money on anything else, I've been spending it on figures. So it's all good.
Yeah, I certainly hear you there, and I think my husband would agree with with that. But yeah, no, I've been working on my collection as well. Your setup, last time I saw it anyway, looked really, really cool. And, you inspired me with the cases for your vintage collection. Because, at the time I was in the market, what kind of cases should I use? And ultimately I went with different ones, but I think it's really, for people like us that obviously love this stuff, we want to preserve some of those things and protect some of those things. And, I think you do the same thing with, your more valuables, right? You have them in a DTOF case too.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It's with the cases, I think it's more of a case of lessons learned, because when I had all my carded figures out on display in my old room, a lot of them were damaged by dust and sunlight and stuff. So it's just more of a case of, okay, I've learned the lesson not to do that now, and just try and get them protected a little bit better. And they work. The cases that I use are sort of more towards the budget end, but I've seen the figure shield cases that you use, and I'm just thinking, yeah, I'm going to need to get my hands on some of those. They look really good.
Yeah, they're great, and I love how they hang on the wall, so I can use my shelf space for my loose figures and such. But yeah, no. So for those who don't know, how long has it been since you started your channel on YouTube?
It has been almost 13 years. I'm celebrating 13 years in a couple of weeks, actually. So I think it's the 12th of February. It'll be my 13th anniversary. So I'm thinking I'm going to have to probably put something special together for that. I know the Forces with Jesse did a special live stream for his 10-year anniversary. So I'm thinking might do something along the same lines. Haven't quite figured out all the details yet, but keep your eyes peeled. I'll probably have something on the way to celebrate that.
Yeah, that's crazy. 13 years. I mean,
Yeah, it's
like
absolutely mad.
it is. And you were one of the first YouTube toy reviewers that I came across for Star Wars, back when I started my channel 8 years ago. And you inspired me to start reviewing toys. So, a lot of, what I've gone on to do with through the channel and the podcast and everything, go back to what you started. So, thank you for all the work you put in over the years. It's very
Oh, you're
invaluable.
welcome. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's so weird though, because it's sort of starting to hit home now how long I actually have been doing it, because all the comments that I get on my videos now are less from people commenting on the figure and the item that I'm reviewing, and more so on the fact that they used to watch me when they were a kid and they've been out of Star Wars for a few years and just happened to come back onto YouTube recently and found that I was still going, and they can't seem to wrap their head around the fact that they used to watch me as an 8-year-old kid and are now a 20-odd-year-old adult.
Wow.
Watching me on YouTube still. It's it's like, yep, thank you everyone for making me feel really, really old.
That's crazy. Yeah, but back then, 10 years ago, 8 years ago, it was like there weren't a ton of Star Wars toy reviewers, right? There was a handful of them that were doing it, but it's not anything like it is now. There's just so many these days.
That's it. The very weird thing that I tend to think about when it comes to YouTube is the fact that when I started, I could literally count on two hands how many people used to review Star Wars toys, and now there are just, as you say, so many, and so many doing it better than I am. I'm starting to feel like I'm falling behind a little bit, but yeah, there's a ton out there now. Whereas, like I said, there were just that small handful all those years ago. I think, in fact, when I started, there was probably only one. So then I was like the second, and then there was a group of us at one point. There was myself, Rasputin 37, Gold Leader 1. We were like the sort of triumvirate of Star Wars reviewers at one point, and now, like you say, it's catapulted and avalanched, and there's just so many now, but so many good ones and so many great channels out there offering superb content. So
absolutely, yeah, definitely. So yeah, I'm excited to talk to you about the Saga collection, because this is an episode we've been trying to do for a while.
Yeah, it is. I think 12 months, if not more.
Yeah. So for those who maybe are new to this series, so this is the Star Wars modern action figure retrospective series, and this kicked off it was either in late 2017 or early 2018 to focus on every single modern Hasbro Star Wars toy line that they've put out there. And we started with the Power of the Force 2 back in of course 1995. I started collecting these in 96. And we had Aaron from Toy Shelf Review who helped us kick that off. And of course, we then focused on episode 1, huge promotion that they did for episode 1. And then we did Saga, we did Clone Wars, we did Power of the Jedi too. Power of the Jedi came after episode 1. Saga, Clone Wars, Original Trilogy Collection, Revenge of the Sith. And then this takes us to 2006. This is the Saga collection. This is the first line after the prequel trilogy had come to a close. And, we were just talking before we started recording. Unlike today, this is one of those lines that was just filled with all kinds of figures and all kinds of assortments, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some really, really cool characters included in this lineup. I think this was really the turning point for Hasbro, where they began to really churn out some really obscure characters. And even though it was quite repack heavy in some areas, some of the new figures they introduced into this line were just choices that you would just not expect, especially today.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we're going to do is we're going to run down the various assortments that made up the Saga collection, just as we've done it before with the previous retrospectives. And we'll talk a little bit about the different offerings that were available. And we are using the Rebel Scum photo archive for reference, as we have in the past, because that's just still a very handy tool. It's very old at this point, but Thank goodness that the guys at Rebel Scum, including Dan Curto, were around back then to make these photo archives a reality, because I think for a lot of people, that's kind of what we relied on, back 10 years ago, 15 years ago when we were doing our collecting. So
yeah, definitely. I think for Rebel Scum, for me, when I was younger, was the YouTube of Star Wars reviews now. And I think, around the time that I started my YouTube channel, a lot of people said the same thing. That before YouTube was a thing, Rebel Scum and photo archives and photo websites like it were the place to go for figure reviews.
Yeah.
And in-depth looks at all these figures. And like we said before we started recording, this is just bringing back some memories looking at these pictures in themselves. So
yeah,
it's going to be fun.
It's going to be fun. That's what we're all about here, is it's having fun, but also being nostalgic. So we're going to remember a little bit. Steve, where were you in 2006? What was going on in your life?
I was still in school, I think. Yeah, I was. I was in my second to last year of secondary school, or high school. So I would have been 50. I was 15 in 2006. So I was still a nipper.
Yeah, I was early in my my college career, and I was on my own. I think this was I had already been on my own for just a little bit, but this was I was also working, and I was obviously very into collecting. Revenge of the Sith for me was a huge, awesome toy line. I still love the Revenge of the Sith toy line. But Saga Collection was kind of something that we didn't really know how they were going to handle it, I think, initially, because, like I said, the prequel trilogy had just come to a close. Revenge of the Sith had come and gone, and, we didn't really know what the future of Star Wars collecting at that point was going to look like. And we got the Saga Collection, and as it turned out, things went on to be okay, I would say.
Yeah, because if memory serves me, I'm not sure if it was around this time that those rumours that went on for years started to circulate about Hasbro potentially losing the license for Star Wars toys.
Yeah.
And I think following Revenge of the Sith, there was this whole. I'm almost certain it was even Rebel Scum that might have reported on it, actually, that there was this whole rumor and speculation going around that in 2006, with following Revenge of the Sith, Hasbro will no longer have the license for Star Wars toys, and someone else will be taking over. And I think that was part of that whole, where is Star Wars collecting going to go next, because no one knew whether or not we were even going to have 3 3/4 inch figures anymore, because there was that rumor that NECA was going to get the license, all this sort of stuff. Obviously it never came to fruition.
Right.
But yeah, we really didn't know where it was going to go. So to see it continue in a somewhat consistent way was a relief.
Oh yeah, for sure. So let's talk about the packaging for the Saga Collection.
Yes.
So I think that this is one of those lines where they obviously incorporated the vintage line, the vintage Star Wars line, the Kenner line, into the aesthetic of what they did with this packaging. But they modernized it. They kind of went off of what Revenge of the Sith had done in terms of the package not being like a perfect square. They were kind of round.
Yeah.
But you do have that classic Kenner style branding, just like we had in the original trilogy collection in 2004. But I think to this day, this is just, one of those lines where, sometimes they do something that's completely fresh, completely new, and very, foreign to Star Wars. And sometimes they incorporate elements of the past and also bring them to the present. And I think this is one of those lines that just really perfected that sort of balance between old and new. What do you think?
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like you said, there's definitely that Kenner influence there, especially towards the top of the cards, with the big silver Star Wars logo, obviously heavily inspired by the Kenner card backs, because you've got the tram tracks that just tail off towards the end of the card. But the thing I really liked about the Saga packaging was this was really the first time that you'd got that combination of elements between the original and prequel eras, in the sense that you'd got that that Kenner aesthetic to the overall packaging, but you'd also got characters and backgrounds especially as well, because each card incorporated its own unique background that reflected the character. So you'd got that it was sort of that merger of two worlds in a sense, where the original trilogy from the 70s and 80s was coming together from the packaging design, but combined with the characters and the locations of the prequels, and that was just really cool to me.
Yeah.
And I loved that each card was unique as well. As I said, each card had that background behind the figure that reflected the figure that you were getting inside the box. So, like for example, Bib Fortuna, you had Jabba's Palace; Anakin Skywalker, you had the Battle of Coruscant; the Cantina aliens, you'd got Mos Eisley, all that sort of stuff. It was just really cool, and it created some really nice visuals.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's something they started with the original trilogy collection. Was they were coming off of Saga, and they did this thing for the original trilogy, which came out on DVD for the first time in 2004. And they basically took the silhouette of the Saga packaging, but then they changed it so that it would look like Kenner. And they started doing those backgrounds there, and I think they migrated that over to Saga collection a couple of years later. And like you're saying, it's gorgeous because each card is truly unique. You get a different background for each figure, and it's kind of like a mini diorama, and it really helps to bring the figures to life. Definitely.
I think this is probably one of the lines where I started collecting it, but didn't quite realize the value, not the monetary value, but the visual value or the individual value of having figures carded. I think this was probably the first line that I started collecting where there was one figure that I managed to keep carded from this line, and that was the Republic Commando Scorch figure that they released, and it was the Ultimate Galactic Hunt variant that came with the silver stand and the foil card.
Yeah.
And I remember at the time, I can't remember where I read it, but I remember reading that it was a really difficult figure to track down, and I found it in Toys R Us. I'd already got Republic Commando Scorch, but finding that variant of that figure, I had to grab it, and I kept it carded for so long. But obviously over time, and the lessons I've learned from not protecting carded figures, sadly it became damaged and worn and torn. But this is definitely a line that I think I'd love to go back and revisit and maybe pick up a few figures from it and just leave them on the card. Because just going through some of these, I'm just looking through some of the pictures now, and I've just forgot how gorgeous some of these cards were.
Yeah, no, they're certainly stunning, and they do hold up even after all this time.
Yeah, definitely.
Because where are we now? We're 15 years out from this line, right? 2006 to. Wow, that's insane! 15 years. Let's talk about the pack-ins that came with these figures, and this was something that Hasbro they've done off and on over the years, and for the Saga collection, they included hologram figures. So. They're basically like little, what would you say, like little statues, I guess, right? That are kind of connected to a base, and they come in translucent blue or silver or red. Yeah.
I think for the Ultimate Galactic Hunt variants as well, they did do them in silver. So
yeah, and those are kind of the chase figures. Another thing that Hasbro does from time to time is they'll do some sort of an Ultimate Galactic Hunt chase program where, you'll if you're really lucky, you'll come across one of the chase variants with one of these silver holographic figures in the packaging, and those are the ones that, of course, everybody wanted. That's why it's Ultimate Galactic Hunt. But they were fun. I mean, as pack-ins, they don't really do a whole lot. But what were your thoughts on these particular figurines?
At the time, I thought they were really cool. I think this was probably the first line, again, that I'd picked up that had pack-ins. It wouldn't be until the 30th anniversary collection came out with the pack-in coins that I'd find a purpose for pack-ins. But I thought at the time they were cool. I think after a while it got a little bit repetitive, because it wasn't like that. You didn't get a different figure, a different hologram figure with each 3 3/4 inch figure you bought. So if you ended up collecting pretty much the full range like I did, then you ended up with multiple holographic Obi-Wans or multiple holographic Dooku's, and over time it just got, okay, I've got all this massive collection of small hologram figures, what do I do with them? But originally I thought they were really cool because it was at this point where I was really setting up displays in my collection where I was basing the displays off scenes from the films, and in that respect, I'd use these little holographic figures for set pieces. So like the holographic Dooku, for example, I used as a set piece for Poggle the Lesser and Dolte. Is it Dolte Define that came in this series, the Nemoidian?
Yes.
I
think so.
I used Dooku as a little set piece for that, and used the holographic Obi-Wan for other stuff. So they served a purpose at the time. I couldn't tell you where they are now, though, in my collection. They're certainly not on display. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. No, I hear you there. I mean, this line had tons of figures. I don't remember the exact number, but for the basic line, there was maybe something like 60 figures, somewhere in that neighborhood. And the holographic pack-ins repeated because there was only like a certain number, maybe like 10 to 15 of them. And those did repeat every now and then. They did come in two different colors. Let's see, the blue and the red. Looks like they were the same thing. It's just, if I recall, I think it was the good guys that came with blue and the bad guys that came with red. Is that your recollection as well?
I'm not sure. I'm sure I had a Dooku that was blue. I'm sure that the red holographic figures came in a little bit later in the line.
Okay. So
it was like a sort of running variant where you'd pick up a figure that came with a blue version, or you'd pick up a figure that came with a red version. There was never it wasn't that one color was exclusive to one figure sort of thing. It was just a running change, and it was just pure potluck as to which one you managed to get.
Right.
But I'm sure the red ones weren't introduced until maybe the third or fourth wave.
Okay. Yeah, I kind of feel like if you bought the actual figure, if it was like Han Solo or Anakin, they would come with a good guy, and then if it was like a Darth Vader or Stormtrooper action figure, they came with one of the villains. But maybe my recollection's murky at this point because it's been so long.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, you're totally right. There was like a running change, and I think they did that just because, like we were saying, they became repetitive, and just to kind of mix it up a little bit. They're like, okay, here, now they're red, so go buy them again. But it was completely random. Like you didn't really know what you were going to get, or, if you bought them in stores, obviously you could take a look, but it was random. There wasn't really like a rhyme or reason to, who Bib Fortuna was going to come with, or who General Riken was going to come with. It was just, the figures came with random things. And I know carded people at the time, completionists were very frustrated with that because of all the possibilities that they could have. Sometimes what are you going to do? Buy General Riken 10 times? Probably not, but that did come up. So yeah, let's talk about the basic figure assortment. So this is, just your core assortment of action figures that made up the line. Like we said, there's tons of them. And these figures, the initial wave of the Saga collection started hitting for most people, in early 2006. Revenge of the Sith, unlike the Saga line or Episode 1 line, basically just ran from during that movie year, 2005. And they switched over to Saga collection in 2006. And that's when this very inaugural wave of figures started to hit retail. Do you remember the first time that you saw the Saga collection on the pegs?
I do. I remember the store I was in. I remember the figures that I picked up when I saw them. Like I said, this is such a nostalgic line for me. I was in Big W, which was a larger branch of the old Woolworth stores that we used to have here in the UK. It was more of a large scale version of those stores, and they were a bit, not so much a department store, but they used to sell loads of different things: clothing, toys, homeware, all that sort of stuff. They're not a thing anymore, unfortunately. They closed down in 2008. But their toy section was massive. It was absolutely huge. And it was around this time I was just starting to fall out with collecting professional wrestling figures, and it was seeing this Saga line of figures on shelf that really just, like you said earlier, with the cards and the character selection, it just drew me right back in. And I wasn't particularly familiar with the line itself. I didn't know it was coming. because this was back, like I said, this was 15 years ago, and while Rebel Scum was a brilliant tool, it wasn't something that I used to look at constantly to find out when things were coming out. It was just sort of a case of if I saw it in stores, I'd grab it. So obviously this was following on from Revenge of the Sith, and I pretty much cleared out that line, picked up everything that I wanted from it, and then walked into Big W, saw these figures on the shelf, and was like, oh, there's a new Star Wars toy range out, and these are new figures. I've not seen these before. What have we got? And the first figure I picked up from it was the AT-AT driver, because the AT-AT driver has always been one of my favourite trooper designs. I always wanted the Power of the Force AT-AT driver when I was a kid. Never managed to get it because I think that was another tricky figure to find back in the day.
Right.
And I think, if I'm not mistaken, this was the first time since the Power of the Force line that the AT-AT driver was updated in a new sculpt. So I saw it on the shelves and I was like, that's an AT-AT driver. I've been wanting this figure for years. So I grabbed it. And then I think the second figure I grabbed was the Han Solo in Carbonite. And I'm not sure why I picked that figure up, given the fact that we had in those first initial waves some really cool figures like General Veers.
Yeah.
And Bib Fortuna, like you said. But there was just something about that Han Solo in Carbonite figure, especially the way that it was displayed in the box.
Right.
Because obviously you'd got that background behind the character, and then you'd got the red thawing effect on the Carbonite block itself. That I just thought that looked really, really cool. So I decided to grab that as well. And then I think Darth Vader was the third figure that I picked up, and then it just sort of trailed off from there. I picked up R2-D2 at one point because of all the little boxes that he came with. Again, I was big into set pieces at this time and displaying my figures in scenes from the film. So anything like that I could get my hands on, diorama pieces, all that sort of stuff, that was a must. So even if I'd gotten the figure from a previous range, I was picking it up again to get the accessories that it came with. But yeah, just they were the first initial figures that I picked up from the series, and then I just eventually just ended up getting pretty much the majority of the line. I think there's only a handful of figures that I'm missing from it. So yeah.
Yeah, same here. To be honest, I can't remember the very first time I saw these in stores. It would have been Walmart or Target, but I don't remember the first time seeing them. But I know that I picked up the entire wave except for Barada. I don't know why I didn't get Barada, but maybe I didn't find him at the time. But I think it was, it was the Return of the Jedi wave. This is back a time when they did themed waves, which is something I wish they still did, because it's...
Yeah, me too.
I feel like you can get a little more excited when you're like, oh, what's the next theme? And
just a wave with more than 4 figures would be nice.
Oh yeah, for sure. So this is Princess Leia in Bouge Disguise, brand new sculpt at the time. Same with Han. Like you said, he came with this carbonite. The carbonite's it has like a red glow, just like it did in Return of the Jedi, kind of thawing out. Bib Fortuna. This was the last time we got Bib Fortuna in the modern line, 15 years ago. Barada, which I think was a repaint of an older figure.
Yeah, he's a figure from the Power of the Force cinema scene packs.
Yeah, that's going back a while. Chewie, I think, was a repack as well, but now he had like a metal chain on him that was in the packaging. And then the last one in the wave, and this one I always thought was a fun one, because it's not the most modernized, obviously, even at the time, but Boba Fett. And I just thought that one is great because of the flame effect that he came with that you can use as a display base.
Yeah, that was a combination of all different figures as well, if I remember correctly, because the top half of the figure was from the Saga sort of 2002, 2003 line, and you'd got that weird action feature where you press the missile on the back of his jetpack and his arms would swing up.
Yep.
And then very, very limited articulation in the arms. And then the lower half of the figure was the vintage OTC Boba Fett. So you've got this really great amount of articulation going on in the lower half of the body. And then obviously the flame effect came from the Saga version as well. But it was all painted up in Return of the Jedi colours, because the figure that had come in the Saga line was painted up like The Empire Strikes Back, and you'd got this blue tint to the armor and the jumpsuit underneath and stuff. So this was even though the figure, like you said, wasn't the best Boba Fett figure out there, it was definitely what's the word? Not inventive.
Yeah, it was fun.
It was an inspired choice in terms of the way they put it together.
Yeah, I agree.
Especially for the time as well.
Yeah, no, totally. And just having that extra articulation in the legs over the previous way that it came out just made it so much better. And I actually have this one on my desk right now because not too long ago I was kind of moving the arms around, and I guess I broke it.
Oh no!
Yeah, and so his left shoulder, just kind of broke, and a piece of the plastic got lost. I don't know what happened, but I think it was one of the things about this figure though is just the paint on this Boba Fett is pretty film accurate. Sometimes they kind of get the jumpsuit pretty close, sometimes not. This one, I think is fairly close to Return of the Jedi, so that made it, pretty cool as well.
Yeah, and I think this is probably one of the better looking carded figures from the line as well, because you've got the Sarlacc pit in the background, so it's almost as though he's, the jetpack's throwing him into the Sarlacc. So I think this podcast is going to cost me a lot of money, I think, because I'm just looking through all these figures and thinking, yep, I'll be picking that one up at some point. Adding that one to the carded collection.
Yeah, no, it's such a fun one. But then, like you said, it moved into the Hoth wave where you had things like General Veers, who I think was at the time was pretty solid. I think even now, like just standing him on the shelf at attention, or with his arms folded behind his back and the removable armor, like that was just kind of a fun concept, just to be able to kind of get two figures in one, basically, when you remove the armor pieces.
Yeah, that was always a regret of mine with this line, that I never went back and picked up a second General Veers, because I didn't really appreciate the fact that it, like you said, it was two figures in one. So it would have been really good to have had two on the shelf, one in the attack commander armor and then the other in just his Imperial officer uniform. Yeah. So thankfully they went back and sort of updated him in the vintage collection as the attack commander. So I've got an attack commander on the shelf now from the vintage line, and then Veers in his officer's uniform. So good things come to those who wait, I guess.
Yeah, I would say so. And we're talking a little bit about retools and repacks, and the Saga collection was no stranger to either of those things. And we talk about now, we still get repaints and we still get retools and things like that. But I mean, this Saga collection was kind of full of them, because then you have things like the Snow Trooper, which this was another unique one, right? This was another kind of kit bash that they did.
Yeah, I think the lower body of this one was brand new, but the upper body was again reused from the Saga collection from 2002. I think the legs on the original release were a little bit more pre-posed in sort of a running stance.
And they were short.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Or was it that they were a little bit differently posed because he came with an E-Web cannon? Am I remembering that right?
Yeah. So it did come with the cannon. I think this one did too, but the figure was short, so I guess it looks like they put the Power of the Force legs on this one's torso, and then they got it to be like a taller figure. But this one, it's such a weird thing, but yeah, that's totally what they did. It says it's the Power of the Force legs and then the Saga. And when we say Saga, I know it can be confusing. There's the Saga collection and then there's just Saga, which wasn't the official Hasbro name for the 2002 to 2004 line, but it's just kind of a name that came up and stuck because it did encompass all of the different films at that point. But this was officially the Saga collection. So this is when we say Saga, we mean 2002 to 2004, but the Saga collection specifically is 2006. Let's see. So after that, okay, so we got a Darth Vader shortly thereafter based on The Empire Strikes Back. And this one has a removable dome. And I remember that the dome on this one always would fall off. It was very loose.
Yeah, because this figure was repacked from the 500th Darth Vader figure that they released that was in the meditation chamber.
Yeah, you're right.
And I'm sure they re-released this figure again towards the end of the Saga collection line in 2006, but they glued the dome down and tried to pass it off as a different figure because they included some of the boxes and storage containers and things that he throws at Luke during their battle on Cloud City. But it's the exact same figure. But they released it twice in the same line.
You're right. You're right. That's what happened. And this one, they added like a burn mark to his shoulder pad.
They did. I forgot about that.
Yeah, just a little detail, but something to differentiate your Darth Vaders, because this sculpt and this figure came back many times after this and other lines too.
And it wasn't a bad one, to be fair. I mean, with the exception of the swivel cut elbows, it was a really good figure.
Yeah, no, it even today, like, it still holds up. If you just have him on the shelf, I think he still holds up. The sculpt is really nice on it. I have one of the Star Tours multi-packs from, I think, 2012, 2013, and it came with that figure. So with the burnt shoulder pad and all. So yeah, no, it's cool. Let's see. That way I've had a droid 2-pack. Let's see, like a power droid and a treadwell droid. Mm-hmm. That was fun. We don't really see like 2-packs like that anymore. Those were really simple figures too. I think the treadwell droid was from like Power of the Force. I think that's the one that maybe came with Aunt Beru.
It was, yeah.
Yeah. And then we go into the Attack of the Clones wave. This one actually had some pretty cool stuff in it. Let's see, Sora Bulk. So Sora Bulk is one of the Jedi from the arena. And this is like a Weequay Jedi. And I think maybe that might have been the first Weequay Jedi that we received in the modern line.
It was, yeah, because I think up until this point, the only Weequays that we'd had was the Skiff Guard in the Power of the Force line.
Yeah, it's a really cool figure too, like really detailed face sculpt.
Yeah, I really like this one. The thing that always annoyed me about it was the fact that the top half of the body was always so well articulated, but then you'd got ankle articulation but no knees, making him really difficult to stand up.
That is so weird.
But in terms of sculpt, he was really, really good. And the Weequays have always been one of my favourite alien species from Star Wars. So and back in the day, I missed out on the Weequay Skiff Guard, so to get this guy, even though it wasn't the Skiff Guard, to get a Weequay in the collection was awesome at the time.
Yeah, and it's so weird. Like, I don't see what the point of ball jointed ankles is if you don't have any other joints in the legs. I mean, that just seems
very strange.
Very strange, yeah. And
yeah.
Was it this figure or this character that they updated for the vintage collection, or was that a different character?
I think it was the Nictor Jedi VX Search that they updated for the vintage collection, but I'm pretty sure that I don't think it was Sora Bulk, but there was a Weequay Jedi released in the Order 66 2-packs. And it came with an ARC Trooper, I think, but it was a completely different figure to this. I think the body was based on the Revenge of the Sith Kit Fisto, and the head was totally new.
That's right. And a gorgeous card on this one, too. Like, you have the Jedi in the background with the lightsabers. Yeah, that's really cool. Okay, so... I remember seeing this... I remember passing on this one at Target, but I remember seeing the C-3PO with the Battle Droid head. This was a repaint of the one that came in the C-3PO with Droid Factory Assembly line. So I already had the figure. Maybe that's why I passed on it at the time. But it's basically what it says it is, right? It's like, goes back to that scene on Geonosis. C-3PO's head gets mixed up, which... Yeah. That whole, there's silly moments in all of Star Wars, right? But every time I come to that one in that film, I just kind of lose my attention. It loses my attention for a little bit, but
it's definitely one of the most slapstick moments.
Easily.
It's a figure I picked up as well, and I've no idea why. Because like you, I had the droid assembly line as well, so I already had this figure, and I can't think for the life of me why I decided to pick this one up as well.
Let's see. After that, it goes into Revenge of the Sith, but they're Scorch. I think that you mentioned Scorch earlier. This was kind of a cool thing because around this time frame, Republic Commando had been a really big video game, and I remember when they announced that they were going to be releasing Scorch. People were like, "Oh, that's cool. Are they gonna give us all of the Republic Commandos?" And eventually they did, right? But it took a few years after this for it to happen.
I think it was the same year that they finally released the other Commandos, but they did it in that exclusive multipack, and it was just the same figure repainted multiple times, but with different backpacks, different weapons. And then I think it was around 2011, 2012 when they finally went back and updated them all with better articulation. Because again, going back to what we said earlier, there was some really weird articulation choices in this line. Because again, Scorch, from the waist up, such an articulated figure. Like he had I remember he had such a fluid ball joint in his upper body, and the elbows and shoulders were articulated, but then there was zero articulation in his legs. He had swivel hips, and that was it.
Yeah.
So yeah, they finally went back and updated those a few years later. But yeah, it was a strange choice for them to release just the one Commando in the main line and then release the others as an exclusive set. I think that irked a lot of collectors at the time.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So yeah, this I was really excited about this Revenge of the Sith wave because, you know, to this day I love Revenge of the Sith, but this was a solid wave. I mean, this had figures that we didn't get in the Revenge of the Sith toy line the year before. You have here like the Fire Speeder pilot, which, you know, we only see those like for a couple moments in the film, and we only see them from like, well, I guess we do see the full body a little bit later in the film, but when you first see it in Revenge of the Sith,
head, isn't it?
yeah, just like, yeah, we'll bring you in, or I forget exactly what they say. But this was a fun figure because it's kind of like an intergalactic fireman, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I love this figure. It gives me a Rocketeer vibe.
Yeah.
In the overall appearance of it. Like you've got the copper and bronze effect going on in the helmet and the fire hose and the backpack and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's when you look at all the other characters and figures in this line, it's probably one of the more uninteresting, I'd say.
Yeah.
But it's such a good figure in its own right.
It
you
is.
know, the sculpt on it. I've still got this one on my Revenge of the Sith shelf, and the detail on it and the overall sculpt is superb. I really still like this figure, and I think it still holds up today as well.
Yeah, no, I would say so. And we do see them a little bit later in the film too, I think, when they're working on like one of the gunships. So I think that was one of the debates, like, are they clones? Are they just regular guys that serve as mechanics as well? Like, are they
I think they were
fireproofing?
clones. I'm sure it was the Visual Dictionary that confirmed them as clones, and I'm pretty sure that when you go back and watch Revenge of the Sith and they say the line as they bring in the Grievous flagship down, I'm sure that it's Tamira Morrison who does the voice.
Oh, wow.
And
okay.
that just made this character so much cooler for me.
Yeah.
So I love it.
Well, now I might need to go back and get some more. So this was the first time we got Commander Cody in 3 3/4. And that was really exciting because even though the figure was kind of lacking in terms of like the leg articulation, I think it was just the hips that moved, if I recall correctly. But it was a character that was pretty prominent in the film. One of the very few named clone troopers in Revenge of the Sith. So when we actually, it looks like he does have ball jointed knees, but when they announced this figure, I know a lot of people were excited because of how prominent he was.
Mm-hmm. This was one of the figures that I really wanted them to release towards the end of the Revenge of the Sith line, because I know they start towards the end of that line. They started releasing figures such as Commander Gree and Commander Bly.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, this is the moment where we're going to get Commander Cody. And I remember the Christmas of 2005, and again, this is going back to a time when I didn't follow Star Wars collecting news. I was just hopeful, I guess, blindly optimistic. I remember putting Commander Cody on my Christmas list for Christmas 2005, even though there was no word on whether or not this figure was even getting released. But I put him on my Christmas list, so I don't know how I expected my parents to get hold of a figure that wasn't even made
Just
at the
in
time.
case.
But I was just so excited for it. So when it did finally come out in 2006, I was ecstatic when this guy came out.
Yeah.
Despite his very, very tiny head.
Oh, yeah, I remember. Yeah. So he does have a removable helmet, but his head is itty bitty. It's weird, but so we also got in this way one of my favorite figures that they did, because clones were a huge thing back then. It was really like around like Revenge of the Sith, Saga collection, where Hasbro realized the potential in clone trooper action figures, and how people really wanted to army build them, and so they did the clone trooper, the Utapau clone trooper. So this is the orange striped figure, and it's based on the super articulated clone trooper from the Revenge of the Sith line. But this is the first time they actually utilize that sculpt as like a troop builder outside of the plain white clone. And I was super happy to find these, and I bought I think I bought like 5 of them ultimately, but it was a really exciting one for me.
Yeah, I love this figure as well. And that super articulated clone trooper sculpt that they used for it as well, I think still holds up today. I mean, proportionally, it looks a little bit off compared to the vintage collection clones that they went back and did. But I love this figure. Fond memories of that one.
Yeah, I do too. I still use this sculpt, like, because the vintage collection ones were really hard to find, as I recall. They didn't make them in the same numbers as some of these older clones. So I wasn't able to like army build those. So, I might have one of the different clones, but for my, like the bulk of my armies, these are the super articulated versions that I use for my clone troopers. So let's see. So this was an interesting one, Steve. So this is Fal Modama. Yes. So this was based on the Clone Wars micro series that had come out, I think it was like 2003, and then it continued in early 2005. But this is such a weird figure.
I love it for that exact reason, though. Again, going back to what we said about the Boba Fett at the beginning, in terms of the way it was put together and it being an inspired choice, this one, I think, even though the figure itself is really dated, the way they put it together is really, really good. I love the fact that they just took a Power of the Force alien from the Cantina and just threw Jedi robes on it. I think it's great.
Yeah, and boots.
Yeah. With little straps that you fastened up as well. They didn't just sculpt the boots or do it in a way that you couldn't take them off. That was, love this figure so much.
Yeah,
and it's 2 figures in one again, because if you didn't pick up Muftak from the Power of the Force line for the Cantina, then you could buy another one of this figure and take the robes and boots off, and hey presto, you've got a Cantina alien.
Yeah, there you go. It's just so weird, and those boots are just so oversized. It's just such a wacky looking release, but
yeah.
And then
this was another frustrating one though, because the lightsaber they included with it didn't fit in his hand.
Yep.
So you had to leave the clear elastic band on the hand to keep the lightsaber in place. That really annoyed me back in the day.
And then the card art was kind of funny, like just a little picture they have of him there holding the lightsaber.
Yeah. heavily photoshopped.
Oh yeah.
From the original trilogy.
Very much so. Very much so. And then why is he in the Chancellor's Loft? Oh, because of the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
Yeah. So funny. Here, Grievous was repacked. This was a sneak preview Grievous, but now they finally corrected his cape and it's black. So that was, I think, like,
this was a repaint that was based on his appearance from the Clone Wars animated series as well. Because I think when you look at this one, and you compare it to the Revenge of the Sith Grievous, like the finish on his armor plating and stuff is more of a white color.
Yeah.
When you'd obviously got that burny off-white color for the Revenge of the Sith version, so it was more leaning towards the appearance he had in that animated series. So I guess this figure was sort of released to complement Fal Mudama in some ways.
Yeah, could have been. The next wave was probably my favorite, just on the account that, I'm a huge Cantina fan. And I do remember finding this one. I remember, like, I had gone on a date and I remember, like, my date was like, where do you want to go? And I said, oh, can we go to Walmart? So I think this was after the date. I think we had gone somewhere and done something, and where do you want to go? Can we stop by Walmart? So he took me to Walmart, and I found this wave there. It was a Walmart that I had never been to. It was like on the other side of town, but I remember seeing Hammerhead and these other characters, and I got so excited. I'm like, okay, excuse me, Mr. Date person that I'm with. I don't even remember the person's name or even what they really look like, but I would like to. I need to buy these, so just kind of bear with me. I know it might be a little weird, but I bought the whole wave, and I was super excited to find these. Super excited.
Yeah, it's a really good wave. a lot of new figures, a lot of updates.
Yeah,
some characters that I missed out on when they were first released and stuff. Yeah, just really good figures in this one.
Yeah, great stuff. We have Hammerhead, Momonadon, which this is the last sculpt that we got of that character, and this was the first one since the Power of the Force 2, which I think they did retool him for those Cantina dioramas they did during the Saga line.
Yeah.
But this was like a brand new sculpt, beautiful figure, very film accurate. And this is when they started including like little scenery pieces with some of the figures. So he came with a little like a little table, right? So
Yeah,
like a little...
yeah. I think they've released a couple of these tables as well, because there's one with Hem. Is it Hemdazon?
Hemdazon. Yeah, Hemdazon. Yeah, another stellar figure in this way. Brand new Cantina alien. Only time we've ever gotten this one in the main line, and such an important one because it's the first
one you see.
Yeah, it's the first one you see in the Cantina, even though it was just a head on a stick, as I recall.
It's one of the only figures again from this series as well that I missed out on, and I could kick myself because I saw it and just for whatever reason just didn't pick it up at the time. And looking on the secondary market now on eBay, it's an absolute fortune to try and get a hold of him now. Wow. But yeah, even just looking at the picture, just a really cool looking figure. Big regret not picking that one up.
Yeah, for sure. I think he's in the holiday special too, but I don't know if we see much more of him than the head once again. But I always thought that was such a fun alien, and to get him in the Saga collection, was awesome. Yeah. And then there's more Tatooine stuff that kind of rounds out this wave. Garandan, last time we got him as well. That one still holds up too. I would say he looks really nice still. Yeah,
definitely. Again, weird articulation, swivel cut elbows, nothing in the. I remember this one because it had in the lower half of the body there was just swivel hips and swivel ankles. Swivel ankles. What is that? he had swivel cuts at the top of his boots, and I could never figure out why. Such weird articulation choices in this line.
Yeah, he had little itty bitty ears too. Like if he pulled back his hood.
He did, yeah. And he came with the little removable comm link and stuff as well.
Yeah, the kind of like nightmare fuel for lost accessories for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, great release. I wish we got stuff of this caliber now. Even if they repack figures like these on a vintage collection cards, it'd be gorgeous. Okay, so we have so this was kind of a unique one too. Luke Skywalker. Mm-hmm. I think this was the only time we really got him in this sort of iteration in the actual mainline. So the sculpt is pretty terrible. It goes back to Power of the Force, so it's very limited in terms of what it can do. But for me, what made this figure wasn't the Luke figure. It was more the accessories that he came with.
Yeah, definitely. I love the accessories with this one because you get Obi-Wan's little chest with the two light. You've got Obi-Wan's lightsaber and Anakin's lightsaber hilt in the top. You've got that little detail of the Jedi Order emblem, and then in the bottom of the box, if I remember correctly, it had sort of sculpted blankets and training remotes and all that sort of stuff. It was just a really, fascinating choice of accessory.
Yeah, definitely a little Easter egg type things in there because you have the headset he wore in Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah.
You have the little rebreather device he used in The Phantom Menace and in Revenge of the Sith. And like you said, the lightsabers, I think Obi-Wan's is sculpted into the lid.
Yeah.
But Luke's was removable. So yeah, that was a really fun thing. And then of course Luke has his little poncho and his helmet. Mm-hmm. With the sculpted on goggles. And then he has his binoculars, and this one had a brand new head too, I think, was what they changed from the original release. So it's just kind of a funny figure, and I love looking at like the picture of Luke there on the packaging. Like
little bits. Almost as though someone surprised him with the camera.
He looks like a little kid that's maybe
doesn't he?
Getting ready to go camping or something.
Yeah,
it's great.
This is one of the better looking carded figures again from the Saga line as well, because you've got that, even though there's not much going on in the background. Like you said, the packaging itself was almost like a little diorama. So you've got the moisture evaporator in the background there, and the blue sky behind him. That's a really nice looking card as well.
Yeah, super fun. Okay, so if we move on from that, okay, so we have. Was this the first time we saw this Sand Trooper in the 3 3/4 inch line?
Yeah, I believe it was, because this was I think the only other Sand Trooper that we'd had up until this point was the orange, grey, and white pauldron versions in Power of the Force.
Yeah.
And then this one came out, and it was a reuse, or a retool, should I say, of the vintage OTC Stormtrooper, which I know at the time was a really popular figure.
Oh yeah, it was. But this Sand Trooper, this was his first appearance with this sculpt and this, with the pauldron and such. But this figure was repainted and repacked ad nauseum after this release. Yeah, we saw him multiple times over and over.
I think it was the Saga Legends in the 30th anniversary collection that really introduced the Sand Trooper variants.
Yes, yeah.
And you'd got dirty armor, clean armor, different pauldrons, different weapons.
Yeah, that line, I'm thinking ahead to the retrospective for that one. I'm going to have Dan Curto that we're going to talk about that line, but gosh, that's going to be a hard one because of all the variants they did for those Saga Legends figures.
The Sand Trooper was almost like a subline of the 30th anniversary collection, in the sense that you'd got the 30th anniversary collection and then the Sand Trooper collection.
And the pit droids too, remember that?
Oh god, yeah. And the battle droids.
The battle droids.
They really went all in with that, didn't they?
They did. It was an army builder's dream, but it was a little bit of a nightmare too, tracking all those down. So yeah, after that, let's see, we go into Return of the Jedi. Chief Chirpa, I think that's the only time we've gotten him in the modern line. And very fun release. Moff Jajerod, only time this figure was ever made. It wasn't even around in the vintage days, so by today's standards he doesn't hold up so well, I don't think, but it's just one of those that you kind of have to have because it's the only time they ever did him.
Yeah, and it's weird to look back on this figure now, because when you look at him, it doesn't look anything like the character either.
No, it doesn't.
It's literally just a generic Imperial officer. A nice one to have because it is based on that character, but if you want just a generic Imperial officer, then this was probably the way to go at the time. Yeah,
if you showed the figure to a Star Wars fan that didn't collect, they wouldn't be able to tell you who it was. It's okay, there is a Death Star gunner. This one was an exciting one too because we hadn't seen this figure in a long time. And this was this sculpt's first release into Saga collection, other than the Power of the Force one, which was ages before. But this one had a removable helmet and a removable chest armor, which was kind of different. Yeah, again, like I say, it was multiple figures in one. Because I think it's either in A New Hope or Return of the Jedi. I can never remember which way around it goes, but in one of the movies they wear the armor-plated vest, and then in the other they don't. So you've got sort of two variants of the same character there. Yeah. And I love this one as well, because I think this was one of the first times that Hasbro included a Clone Trooper head sculpt on an Imperial figure. So that was exciting in itself as well. For sure. This was a good one. C-3PO with the Ewok throne. Yeah, I love this one. Yeah, this one's great. So we had not ever gotten the throne. The C-3PO, as I recall, was a retool of the Revenge of the Sith figure. Yeah. The upper body is just the Revenge of the Sith 3PO, and then the lower part is brand new. And obviously they gave him the silver leg as well, which I just love the finish on this figure as well, because it's one of the last times we saw a vac metalized 3PO in 3 3/4 inch. He's great. So I just absolutely love this figure, and it still holds up today in my opinion. I think it looks great. I think that's probably the best overall one we have, to be honest, because even the vintage collection is a little more recent, but it's tiny. Yeah, it's terrible as well. It's not good. Yeah, we desperately need a new C-3PO. And I think we forgot to mention it, but the Saga collection figures did come with little display bases. They did, yeah. Yeah, and they had the character's name on them in the film that they were based off of. And I think that along the way, there were a few mistakes. Like you had some OT figures that came with prequel stands or, just random things like that. but yeah, you got to stand, so that was handy. Let's see here. So yeah, Return of the Jedi. Okay, this Emperor is just horrendous. Repack. Yeah, the hood on this one, like yeah, when this one came out, like in 2003, I think it was. I remember just being like, why?
It's so exaggerated, isn't it? Like the head is so small inside the hood. I think they really went for an exaggerated sort of. This almost reminds me of Ralph McQuarrie's concept art of the Emperor for Return of the Jedi. In certain paintings that Ralph McQuarrie did, in the sense that he's got this sort of horror aspect to him, because he does look, not in the fact that the figure looks horrific, but
yeah, it's just
it's like I said, it's just so exaggerated and so bizarre in the way it looks.
It's
even the stature of him is so exaggerated, the way he's hunched over, and
yep,
he's almost more like the Wicked Witch of the West from Wizard of Oz than he is the Emperor in this, in the way he looks.
He's really exaggerated, that's for sure. Like really, really stylized. Like they were, I don't know what they were going for, but I've seen customs of this one where they cut the hood off and then they put soft goods, and the head sculpt's actually really good. But looking at it like this, he just looks really confused or perplexed, and then the lightning bits are just so puny. It's weird. Weird. Endor Luke. This one was a fun one at the time because I think the sculpt was from 2003, but this time they gave him the poncho, the belt, and the helmet, and just an easy way to get a repack, or I wouldn't even call it a repack or a retool. It was just kind of like would you say more of a kit bash, I guess, because they added more.
And it was. I think they put a new belt on it as well that was removable.
Yep.
And it was at the time it was good that they released this figure in the main line, because in the vintage Saga collection that you had to counter this line, you had Endor Leia, so it was nice to get that duo back together again.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And Endor Leia, which they're bringing back that same figure after all this time, this year with the new head. But it kills me that they're doing that. Okay, so after that, here's an Emperor's Wrath Vader. We've seen that sculpt before. I don't think we mentioned it, but wasn't that sculpt?
I want to say original trilogy collection.
Yeah, you're right. That's what it was. And he had he had snow on him, I think, that time.
Yeah. This
time, they're basically doing what they did in, I think the sculpt actually goes back to Power of the Jedi, because they did it as the Emperor's Wrath back then, and it had a glow in the dark skull on the inside. And I always thought that was super cool. But this time, what they did is, instead of a glow-in-the-dark skull, they just they cast the skull inside like in a metallic sort of color. So when you shine like a light on it, you kind of just see like his skull on the inside. Yeah,
I love this figure. Again, it's a dated figure, but the little tweaks that they made to it just to make the helmet sort of semi-transparent, and like you said, to put a skull inside the helmet as well was just really, really cool. I picked this figure up and I still like it. I love that lightning effect as well that was removable, that you could pop on his head. That was really good.
For sure. And I think this one had a different kind of removable hand, because I think they tweaked that as well, right? Like it's translucent, like the lower part of the arm, and then you can see like his robotic.
The arm's translucent, and then when you pop it off, he had the little rub. Like it wasn't like you see in the movie when Luke chops off Vader's hand and you had all the wires exposed and stuff. It was almost like a robotic peg.
Yeah.
It was a silver peg that popped out of the forearm, and I remember this figure because I actually snapped the peg, removing the hand. Right out of the box, and ended up replacing it with sort of a metal pin. which worked. But yeah, that really disappointed me at the time, because I just remember thinking, why would you make a removable hand with because I remember the peg being really, really flimsy and fragile. And like I said, right out of the box, it just snapped right off. So not good.
Yeah, no, yeah, you're right. And yeah, it doesn't even look like his armament or Revenge of the Sith. So it's like they did their own thing, like with this figure, which is weird. Okay, so Phantom Menace, like when we get Phantom Menace waves, to be honest, I don't think it's not the film. It's just when we get figures from the Phantom Menace, I just kind of lose a little bit of interest.
Yeah.
So I think I passed on some of these guys.
Yeah.
So I think it was the tail end of Revenge of the Sith where they started introducing like holographic figures. Not the pack-ins that we were talking about earlier, but like the actual figures are like translucent blue, and they're basically just like repaints of previous figures, but now they're like somewhat translucent. They're not like too translucent, but there's a little bit of that sort of iridescent effect where, you know, they're kind of shiny, and they're supposed to look like holograms. Whether or not they succeed at that is up for debate, but
I think some definitely do it better than others.
Yeah, you're totally right.
This Darth Maul did not do it very well.
No, it didn't. And that's a Phantom Menace sculpt too, so it's like,
it is, yeah,
hard to get excited about things that are that dated, even in 2006. And then I think we mentioned earlier, Rep Bean was in this this line. Such a random figure.
That's it. Like when I think I'm the same as you. I didn't pick up. I think the only figure, it pains me to say it, but the only figure that I did pick up from this wave was the holographic Darth Maul. When even the other figures in the wave, like you said, the figures are just a little bit not uninspired as such, because there's some really cool designs, but it is just a little bit difficult to get excited about them. But looking back on it now, there's so many figures that I would have picked up over that holographic Darth Maul. And that's one of the things I really miss about Hasbro's action figure lines, is the amount of background characters that you used to get. Like Rep Bean, like who thought at the time that was a good idea to put that on a shelf and thought kids will love it. But looking back on it now, it's a figure that I really wish I had. And the same with you've got, is it Gragra there, the shopkeeper from Tatooine, and you've got a couple of pod racer pilots. It's just a line I definitely wish I'd picked. I'd appreciated the more uninteresting characters more from. Yeah,
for sure. These were just fun. You know, very backgroundy, very, you know, obscure even characters that they would never do now. But even if you go back and you eBay some of these, I mean, they're still fun. I mean, I think that's, you know, we often lose sight of you know, why we collect these, because it's fun, you know. And I think with some of these characters and some of these unique renditions of the characters, that, you know, you're getting something that's a little bit different from what came before at this point. And even what's come since then, a lot of the stuff hasn't been repeated. So definitely a treasure trove of characters with Saga collection.
Definitely.
Let's see. Sith Training Darth Maul was an interesting one, because this was a 2002 figure that they basically just added some red stripes to his tunic and said, here you go, guys, buy him again.
Yeah.
Chewbacca with C-3PO on his back. That was a repack from 2002. And I think the 3PO's eyes lit up, if I recall.
Yeah, it's electronic. You press the little panel on his back and his eyes lit up.
Yeah,
which is a figure I actually had. I had the original version of this, and I loved it. It was such a... that's another thing I miss about Hasbro's action figure lines from sort of this era, was the value for money aspect was on point, because you got so, like with certain figures, you got so many accessories, and this one, I think, you know, to get an electronic accessory with a 3 3/4 inch action figure was really good.
For sure. And I think these were like $6, maybe $7.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, it says $6.99 here on Rebel Scum, so pretty incredible. After that, we go into more of this EU type territory. So this Kit Fisto was from the Clone Wars micro series. And this was I think it was a repack also. This one was originally done in 2003 during the Clone Wars Micro Series line. So they repainted him a little bit, brought him back, and this is the only swimming Star Wars figure, I believe. It's kind of a weird one, and they actually have a picture of him kissing Ayla Secura here.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was from one of the comics.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's just
one
kind
of the Dark Horse Clone Wars comics, I think.
Yeah, it's strange. I won't pay too much attention to that.
Nope.
I didn't see that, Kid Fisto.
Moving on.
Here's a holographic Cody, and I think, when you look at these here, kind of emphasizes, how short that Cody figure was. That was another issue with that release. Okay, we get a Clone Trooper. This is a repaint of the other Clone Trooper, and I think these still hold up. This is the only time we got the 442nd Siege Battalion Clone Trooper. This is where they started like repainting the clones. Like, this is where kind of like this era where it really started, like, with the repaints and such. And then, because in that same wave, you also have the 5th Fleet Security version with blue stripes.
I love these Clone Troopers from sort of the tail end of the Saga collection, because I'm not sure whether anyone else will have picked up on it at the time, but these three Phase 2 clones that you see in these last couple of waves, I think it's the 442nd, the 5th Fleet, and the Combat Engineer. They're all Clone Troopers that were released in those Clone Trooper Army Builder 3 packs from Revenge of the Sith.
Yes, you're right.
Where you had the pre-posed Clone Troopers that didn't have any articulation, but you bought them as a pack, and I think they retail for the same price, or if not just a little bit higher than a single 3 3/4 inch figure. But in those packs, you had different clone variations. And I think these 3 Clone Trooper figures were included in those multi-packs back in the day.
Yeah.
And so they just brought those colour schemes back, but updated the articulation on them for this line, and that was really cool for me.
Yeah, totally. And these are based off concept art for Revenge of the Sith that didn't make it into the film. The Engineer is based off the Evolutions mold, so he's got the removable helmet. And let's see, these battle droid repaints are fun as well. So there's like so basically these are supposed to be on Kashyyyk. So they took the battle droids and the super battle droids. The battle droids are in a 2-pack, and they gave them a camouflage paint. So I don't know. I mean, in my head canon, I'm thinking, like, do the Clone Troopers not see like these robotic things on their scopes? Like approaching, like, does the camo really matter? But they were fun because they were a Hasbro thing, right? They weren't something from the film or anything. Hasbro just decided to do this, and again, they're fun. They're unique. But I think the Super Battle Droid was kind of annoying because that sculpt, when it first came out in 2002, it was just like a flimsy sort of. I think it came with the one that came with Yoda, right? It was like a deluxe set that came with Yoda, if I recall.
Possibly, yeah. It was. I just remember it being the legs on it were very, very thin and flimsy, like you said. But then the top half was incredibly, well, it was top heavy, and it wouldn't stand up. But so it was a good thing these figures came with display stands, because on his own he just does not stand up, just topples over all the time. Very
dense upper half. Yeah. Then we have another Clone Trooper, same sculpt, but this is Commander Appo. Mm-hmm. And I always was a fan of this figure. I still have him on the shelf because
me too.
It's just like he just has the pauldron. There's no camo. He's got a little bit of like mud or carbon scoring on his limbs. But for whatever reason, the figure just to me it just really holds up. Very nicely painted, very bright white. I love it.
This was the first time that I saw a 501st Clone Trooper on the shelf as well. So I missed out on the ones that were released towards the end of the Revenge of the Sith line, and around this time, the 501st colour scheme was my absolute favourite for the clones. Yeah. So to get this one, again, this is a figure that I probably wish I'd picked up more than one of, because, again, it's sort of 2 figures in one, because if you remove the pauldron, then you've got just a regular 501st Clone Trooper.
For sure. And during this era, I think it might have been 2006, I think, the book Vader... it was the Darth Vader, the Rise of Darth Vader, I think it might have been called, where it basically goes into Vader's story, like immediately following Revenge of the Sith.
Mm-hmm.
And Commander Appo is one of the prominent characters in that book. He's with Vader, and spoiler alert, he actually dies in the book. But yeah, this figure came out like right around that time that book came out, and I thought it was a really exciting thing, because it was like, oh, here's something that maybe was designed for Revenge of the Sith, but actually didn't get named, and wasn't seen with the pauldron in the film. But he's described in the book, so that was a pretty neat little, maybe unintentional, but it was a neat little tie-in.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a weird one. The Elite Corps Clone Trooper.
Mm-hmm. It's a weird one, but it was one that I was, again, like with Appo. I remember picking up Appo and this figure together, actually, and being really, really excited by them. Like you say, it's a weird one because it's a character from the movies, but it is by no means movie accurate.
Right. So what did they do for this one? I think they took the vintage, the Saga collection Scout Trooper, and they threw some camouflage paint on him to make him look like the Elite Corps Clone Trooper from Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah.
And, it was such an easy thing for them to do, but I think it still looks pretty cool. Even though we obviously got the correct figure later, I think this one still works. It's just like having like an Endor diorama is just kind of like hiding like in the background or something.
Yeah, I really like it in that respect. It's like you said, all the details are there for the Imperial bike scout as opposed to the clone troopers that we see in Revenge of the Sith. But the color scheme it's always, even though it's based on a Revenge of the Sith figure, it's sort of I guess you could say it's an expanded universe character in itself, non-canon obviously now, but yeah, just a cool choice.
Yeah, it is. It's nice. It's nicely painted for sure. And then let's see. We have some astromech droids. Darth Vader's astromech droid. Another one that featured in the Darth Vader Dark Lord book. Let's see. There's a Padme. There's Yarael Poof, one of our Jedi. Another one you were talking earlier about figures not holding their lightsabers. This was this was a major one too.
And it was weird as well because they actually included a lightsaber that in theory should have been able to stay in his hand, because this is the lightsaber that was included with the concept Stormtrooper figure that was released back in 2002.
Yeah.
So the blade itself is a lot thicker, the hilt is a lot thicker, and if you position it just right, then he kind of does hold it, but it would have made so much more sense to include this lightsaber with the Falmo Dama figure that we were talking about earlier as well, because I'm sure that he would have been more able to hold it, or at least it would have filled out the hand a little bit more at least.
Yeah, and this was a hard one to stand. Like, I just remember it being really difficult to get him to stand. But definitely a cool
feet on this one.
Oh yeah, there's something else. If you have this figure, you lift up his skirt to take a look at his feet. Yeah, pretty.
Little sandals on.
Yeah. Very strappy, like fashionista sandals. I don't know what's going on there. And he's got, he's not very pretty. Not very pretty. And then that takes us to the expanded universe wave. So in the US, Steve, these were exclusive to Walmart. Mm-hmm. Was there a certain way that they made them available in the UK?
I think, if memory serves me correctly, these were available through Forbidden Planet. I seem to vaguely remember seeing the Aura Sing on shelf in Forbidden Planet, which obviously most of you will know is a specialty comic book store. But I don't think they were necessarily exclusive to Forbidden Planet. I think that Forbidden Planet just must have found a way to import them in, because I remember it was around this time I was paying around $6.99 for 3 3/4 inch figures, and this wave in Forbidden Planet was marked up at around $11.99, which I remember back in the day thinking, whoa, that's way too much, I'm not paying that. Obviously only to come a few years later, and now I'm paying up to $17.99 for a 3 3/4 inch figure. So it just puts things into perspective a little bit.
Sure.
But again, going back to what we said about some of the other figures in this line, this is one of the waves that I pretty much completely skipped. and really regret doing it now because there's some really cool choices of figures in this line. I think I have Mace Windu's Astromech droid, which is the last figure in the wave.
Yeah.
I think a friend of mine through YouTube hooked me up with that one at one point. But yeah, the other figures in it I didn't get and really regret now because there's some really cool figures in this wave, even though they're all repacks or retools or repaints.
Yeah, I think I only found this on one occasion at Walmart, and they had the whole wave. The only one that I didn't buy was Aura Singh, and I don't know why. I mean, nowadays, of course, I would buy her, but just like at the time, I maybe I had to be a little more selective, so I passed on that one. But I got the rest. Kid Keed Kak was an exciting release for me because they did make her for those Cantina bar sections in Saga, but she didn't get a mass release. I think only a few made it out, like in Canada or something.
Yeah, and I think that there was a couple of those sets as well that weren't even released at all, weren't they? Or I might be getting that mixed up. I'm sure there were a couple of they released a couple of the sets, and then the line got discontinued before the last few made it out.
Yeah, the second wave didn't make it out in the US, and I think a few somehow or another got out in Canada. And then remember when they were doing Jedi Master Points, when they finally figured out how they wanted to do redemptions for those, one of the things you could get was those Cantina sets, which, you had to have an exorbitant amount of those Jedi Master Points. And I know, like, I looked at mine, I was buying so many figures, but I didn't have enough to get anything. So I was just like, oh, well. The rest of these, like you said, are repaints. Let's see, we have Cabe and Nubran Leeds, which were Power of the Force figures. But they look so much better this time, right, with the paint?
Yeah, definitely. I think because I think it was Cabe who came with Muftak in a mail away exclusive back in the Power of the Force line, and then Nubran Leeds and Labria, who's next to him, they came in a Cinema Scene set. And I have the Cinema Scene set that those two characters came in with, Nubran Leeds and Labria, and I think it was a Snaggletooth that came in that set. And I have that Cinema Scene pack, but looking at these versions of the characters, the paint applications on them are so much better. The deco looks so much cooler. So I think Nubran Leeds in the original version just had a white jumpsuit, whereas this one has a silver one. Yeah. And then Labria's just, in his original incarnation, is just completely black costume-wise. And these are a lot more interesting to look at.
Yes, I really love the metallic silvery look. It's such a great look. For that one. And Labria also got a repaint. This is another Power of the Force figure, but again, I think it looks a lot better than the first time. Extra colors on that one. And the last one is like you said, Mace Windu's Astromech droid. So funny story about this one. I bought these figures, but I didn't always, it's the same like it is today. I didn't always open them immediately. In fact, it might have taken a year until I finally did get around to opening it. And once I did, one of the feet, I think it was the left leg, didn't have the wheel inside the foot. So very strange. I contacted Hasbro and they were like, you know what, it's a little while out. This figure isn't in production anymore. So sorry. So that's, I never bought it again. I still have it without the wheel in its foot. It makes it unique, I guess. But yeah, no, that's the end of the basic figures. And I know we didn't touch on them all. I mean, there's just not enough time to do that, but there were so many of them. Yeah. So many
There's
of them.
Some really interesting choices as well. I'll keep saying it, but just to say it's the Saga collection, they really, really did hammer that home, and they pretty much touched based on every point of the Saga at that time, at least, obviously. Yeah. In terms of like the expanded universe and then the original 6 films. Yep,
absolutely. So looking going into exclusive figures, and I know we've already been talking like almost an hour and a half, and we still have all these other assortments that we'll need to race through. But there were some exclusive figures here in the U.S. at Walmart. There were the separation of the twins. Those were 2 separate figures. There was Leia Organa with Bail Organa. And it's just like it says, it's a repack of Bail Organa from Revenge of the Sith, but it has a little baby Princess Leia accessory. And then there is Luke Skywalker with Obi-Wan Kenobi. This is the Revenge of the Sith Obi-Wan repacked, but now with baby Luke. Did you get both of these releases?
No, I never got these. I never even saw them at retail. I don't think they were released here in the UK. If they were probably released through somewhere like Forbidden Planet. I do remember them getting re-released in the comic pack line.
Yeah.
I think it was towards the end of either 30th anniversary collection or legacy collection, and I saw it but never bought it. But obviously, given the fact that it is quite it's sort of an iconic scene, I suppose, in regards to the whole saga. So it is something that I sort of regret, because I think as the comic pack version, I always thought looked better than the original Saga release, because I think the Saga release it was essentially the Saga collection cards, but the logo and the trim around it was orange, and that didn't really do much for me. But the comic pack that was released later on looked cool, and I wish I'd picked that one up, but no, I never got these.
Those comic packs go for a ridiculous amount of money these days, like all of them. Yeah, so the baby accessory was the same on both of these. They just repainted them a little differently. So on Luke, his eyes are closed, but just with different paint. On Leia, they're open. I wonder how these would look with photoreal these days. We'll never find out, because they'll never bring these back. I know they won't. But let's see. Target had the demise of General Grievous, and this was a fun one, because he comes in a clamshell case. Target did that with their exclusives at the time, and he's just got fire spouting out of his eyes.
It's a gruesome release, this one, isn't it?
It is. He's just on fire, literally.
Yeah, I had this one because this was a Toys R Us exclusive here in the UK, so I managed to get hold of this one. Had it carded for quite a while, and then for whatever reason at some point decided to open it, and again, knowing what I know now and looking back, I wish I'd left it carded, because it wasn't often that you used to get figures put out in clamshells, as opposed to having to buy the cases separately. So
right. The San Diego Comic Con exclusive for 2006 was a 501st Stormtrooper. So this is basically your VOTC Stormtrooper, but now he comes with a little sign that says Vader's Fist. He's got an emblem on his chest. Another one that comes in a clamshell. There was a Shadow Stormtrooper exclusive to Star Wars Shop.com, which isn't a thing anymore. And this one they did, I think in 30th anniversary when they did Saga Legends, they repacked that one. Let's see. It says at Woolworths there was a Darth Vader Empire Strikes Back on a vintage card. Do you remember seeing that one?
I do remember seeing this one. It was, I'm pretty sure it was a complete repack of the vintage original trilogy collection Vader. But I think where that figure came on a Star Wars card, this one came on the Empire card, like you said. So even though it was essentially the same figure on a different card, it fell under that umbrella of the Saga collection. And this one came in a clamshell as well, had a Woolworth sticker on the front. And I think you can still get a hold of this one on eBay and the secondary market pretty cheaply nowadays. It didn't sell for that much, if I remember rightly. I remember seeing it, but for whatever reason never picked it up. I think probably at the time I thought I had enough Darth Vaders and didn't appreciate the fact that he was on a vintage card back. But yeah, I think it's pretty accessible to get to this day.
I've noticed that with quite a few of the VOTC and even the vintage Saga collection, which we'll talk about in just a minute. You can get those pretty inexpensively. I don't know if it's the sculpts or what it is, but they're not too expensive. Not like the vintage collection tends to be. No. Let's see. France had a Saluka My Clone Trooper. That is a repack of the Target exclusive from a couple years, a year prior to this.
Yeah, this was exclusive to Toys R Us here in the UK as well.
Oh, cool. So Vintage Saga Collection, this continued what they were doing in the VOTC, Vintage Original Trilogy Collection 2004. They realized how much of a mega hit it would be if they put super articulated or, quote unquote, super articulated for the time, figures on vintage card backs inside protective clamshell cases. How much money they could make by, capitalizing on nostalgia. So they did a few figures, and these were, pretty detailed compared to the main Saga collection line at the time. There's Luke in X-Wing gear. There is Tusken Raider. There's Greedo. There is Scout Trooper, and there is Han Solo in Endor outfit. And these were all great. I picked up all of these. I know that they don't quite hold up today, particularly the Tusken Raider.
I don't know. I think the Tusken Raider is still, maybe not in terms of articulation and
right.
certain aspects of the sculpt, but I still really like the soft goods on this one. I really like the material that they use for the robes on the Tusken. I think they still hold up, even if the rest of the figure doesn't. And I think the Greedo figure still holds up really well today.
Yeah, that one's
sculpt
nice.
wise, that jacket was always a questionable decision, but but the sculpt of the figure itself I still think is really, really good. I think that probably the weakest one from this series by today's standards is probably the Luke in X-Wing gear.
Sure.
The other figures, you could forgive Hasbro for re-releasing those at some point, but the Luke, given the recent vintage collection one that we got,
right.
Which blows this one out of the water.
Yeah.
But at the time, like I said, in 2006, this was a groundbreaking figure.
Oh, of course. I don't even think I wouldn't even know what to do. I have this figure, all of these still, but I don't even know what I would do with the Luke figure, like in terms of display, because there's just no point.
I still have all these on card, but I don't have them in the clamshells. I opted to take them out of the clamshells and display them in the protective cases that I've got the rest of my vintage collection in.
Yeah.
Which I somewhat regret, because obviously I've taken away part of because I think the clamshells even had the vintage Saga collection logos on them and stuff as well. But you couldn't really see the full card in those clamshells. So when I started to set up my new collection room, I thought, you know what, I want to display these cards. I want to be able to see them. So I decided to take them out of the clamshells, and I'm glad that I did. They do look a lot better, and these cards are still the cards, obviously, given the fact that we're in the midst of the vintage collection now, still hold up. And,
I've actually done the same thing with my VOTC or vintage Saga collection. I took them out of the original clamshells, and I might have actually been inspired by you first, and then I put them in the figure shield cases, because for the same reason, I wanted to see them better. I've noticed on some of these older figures that the clamshells were turning a little bit yellow, and the only one that I left in the original clamshell was the exclusive George Lucas and Stormtrooper disguise. That's the only one that I thought I needed to keep intact. So
yeah, it's a funny story about that George Lucas in Stormtrooper disguise figure, because even though that was it was a mail away, wasn't it, for the Ultimate Galactic Hunt, and you got the little certificate and the stickers that you had to get from each figure to apply to the certificate to mail off for it in the vintage Saga collection figures.
Yeah,
I've still got all the certificates, I've still got all the stickers from those figures, but in the UK the mail away offer wasn't valid, so we couldn't actually do it. So there was no way for us in the UK to get the George Lucas figure. And then I think it was might have been 2009, 2010. There was a store here in the UK, a multimedia store, HMV, that for some bizarre reason they began to stock the remote control R2-D2 figure from the Clone Wars. And when you bought that figure, or when you bought that remote control R2-D2, you got a free George Lucas in Stormtrooper disguise.
Oh, wow.
So, and at the time I was like, I don't really have a need for a remote control R2-D2. It wasn't the best version of R2-D2 that they'd ever put out, so I think I bought it as a birthday present for someone else, but ended up keeping the George Lucas. But it was just so weird how, all these years later, this figure it was almost as though they must have just come across them in a warehouse somewhere and just thought, oh, we can give this away as part of this offer. And I think the R2-D2 was around £16, and then obviously you got the George Lucas figure for free, so jumped at that chance and finally managed to get one a few years later. So, but yeah, weird way of doing it.
Yeah, no, this one is as far as like exclusive figures, like mail-aways that go, this is one that I feel like you probably really want to have.
Yeah.
The only thing I could say about it is I think, this was an era where some of the Trooper figures didn't always have the best like white plastic. And I feel like mine, and maybe I'm wrong, but I kind of feel like just looking at it, like the plastic's kind of gotten a little darker over time. I mean, there's not a whole lot we can do about that, but it's still pretty awesome, I think, to have like a figure of George Lucas, because I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the must-haves.
Because I think prior to this, they'd only ever released one George Lucas figure, which was the Jorg Seikul X-Wing pilot in the Saga line. And then after this, obviously, they did the Lucas Family 3-pack, didn't they, based on the Revenge of the Sith characters that they all...
Yeah.
So you've got to have one George Lucas figure in the collection.
You got to.
It's a must.
Yeah, I never got a second one to open up. Maybe one day I will, but just to have him like on the card, I think is pretty cool. And it even says George Lucas in Stormtrooper disguise on a vintage card back. That's just fun. That's even one of the Easter eggs in Star Tours. There's a lot of little Easter eggs, like when you're in the queue, like that you hear called out. And I think one of them is like, Mr. Sakul, would you please come to like baggage check or something like that. All right, so let's see here. Greatest battles and heroes and villains. So these were two kind of like side assortments in addition to the main line that you could also get. They were the same price. Packaging was more or less the same. But I think the intent with these was to bring back like main characters or popular characters that they could, sell to maybe people that maybe didn't have them already. And a lot of them were repacks from the Revenge of the Sith line, like Darth Vader, Anakin, Commander Bakara, your regular all-white clone trooper, a couple of versions of Grievous, Mace Windu, Destroyer Droid, R2-D2, and like I said, there's not really like a rhyme or reason to whether or not the figures in Greatest Battles or Heroes and Villains. They're just kind of wherever they're at. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess it was a cool way to bring back some of these figures, but I mean, looking over them, I think they were all from Revenge of the Sith. So basically it was just figures from that line that they repacked. So I think I passed on pretty much, I want to say I passed on most of, if not all of them, because I already had them, but it was nice, I guess, to, if you missed out on certain ones, you could buy them again.
Yeah, I think especially given the fact that across both collections, they released quite a lot of the harder to find figures from Revenge of the Sith. So I'm looking at the Greatest Battles collection. You had the 501st Clone Trooper, the ATTE Gunner, and the Clone Commander, or Commander Devis as he later became known. Yeah. They were tricky to get at the time when Revenge of the Sith was on store shelves, so it was good that they went back and re-released those, but it was weird that they released the harder to get figures alongside some of the figures that really weren't that difficult to track down.
Yeah, I agree.
It's like you've got a regular release of Darth Vader there that was, probably a peg warmer at the time.
Yeah.
But then you've got Commander Bakara, which again was a figure that was released towards the end of the Revenge of the Sith line and was harder to track down. So I think, like you say, it was just an opportunity for maybe fans to get who might have only just joined collecting.
Yeah,
just get a few. But it was interesting that they released some of the variants as well, because I think in the Heroes and Villains collection you had the Shadow Clone Trooper pilot, which was a running change to the regular clone pilot, and then you had in the Greatest Battles collection you had the Shock Trooper, which was a running change to the Quick Draw Clone Trooper.
Yeah.
And that were like almost like chase figures back in the day. That you they weren't. They were only packed like 1 to every so many cases. So it was good that they went back and did that.
Yeah. And that clone was a pretty good sculpt, even though we all talk about the super articulated version that was part of that same line, but this one was essentially the same thing. The sculpting may not have been quite on par, but it was still pretty well articulated. Pretty nice figure. Yeah,
but I'm going to say pretty much the only difference between those two was the ball joint in the waist, and then the spring-loaded arm that you had for the quick draw action feature. But
yeah. So looking over the multi-packs, there were several. Entertainment Earth had a couple of Aster McDroid packs, and I'll just list them because there's quite a few. There was a Lucas collector set, which this was another unique one, talking about George Lucas. This one actually featured his entire family and the cameos that they had in Revenge of the Sith. So this was another one that I did pick up because, just by the merit of it being, Lucas's family, I felt like, okay, well, you kind of got to have that. And I think the only repack in here was Zet Jukasa. He was in the Revenge of the Sith line. But the other ones, Lucas's daughters and the Lucas figure himself, Baron Papanoida, were brand new figures. Walmart also had exclusives. This is something that they did for a while. Anytime that a new DVD would come out, or a home video release for Star Wars, they would release these 3-packs back during this time. Mm-hmm. And let's see, they did one for A New Hope, they did one for Empire, and they did one for Return of the Jedi. And these weren't anything special. They were just repacks of figures from the very early 2000s. I mean, they were figures that, if you passed on them, you weren't really missing anything. Let's see, there was a gift pack for Woolworths, ROTS figures, some Jedi Knights. This one it says Argos exclusive, and I think we had this one here in the US as well somewhere, but these were, that was just a terrible set. Like, those figures they weren't even like, they were basically like little statues, as I recall.
Yeah, the Anakin in this particular set, I remember, again, God knows why, but I picked this one up. I think it was the packaging that was the appeal more than anything else. But even after I picked it up, I never left it in the packaging, so don't know what was going through my mind at that point. But I think the Anakin and the Obi-Wan, they were repacked figures from I think the Obi-Wan came from the Mustafar dual play set. And the Anakin came from those. Do you remember those battle arenas that came?
Yeah. Do I remember those? Yes, I do.
The Anakin came from the Anakin versus Dooku, one of that, and then the Mace Windu that was in this set was a repack from all the way back in Episode 1. So yeah, not the best figures.
yeah, definitely passable unless you're a fan of that little novelty aspect of these. There was a Death Star briefing room. I remember, I never got this one, but I remember this being like a pretty popular exclusive. Unfortunately, it didn't come with the actual table. It was just like cardboard, like from the packaging.
Yeah,
but
this is another in-box piece that looked really good, though. I think as a mint in the box item, this is a really nice piece.
Oh yeah, for sure. Because there's members of the Death Star briefing that weren't ever made available outside of this. So characters. So that's a neat one. Let's see, outside of that, previous exclusive Hunt for Millennium Falcon Battle Pack. And it's basically just like it says, it's all the bounty hunters in one pack, but again, all older figures.
Yeah, I had this one as well.
Nice.
Yeah, this was one that I picked up from Forbidden Planet, and looking back on it now, like, the figures are really dated, but this is, again, like the Death Star briefing set. It's an item that in the box looks really good. Yeah. Because it's almost like it's a display piece in its own right, because you've got the Bridge of the Executor behind all the bounty hunters and stuff. And
for sure. And then this is the one you were talking to me about earlier, the Republic Commando Delta Squad. Yeah. And this one has the full Delta Squad, the 4 troopers, and then it has some Geonosians as well for them to fight with.
Yeah, I love this. I think this is one of the things that I really wish they'd done for the updated set that they did a few years later. Because I think the one that was released in 2011, 2012, they put all the Republic Commandos in it and then just included one Geonosian. But looking back on this set, the Geonosians that they included in this set were all unique. And I think it was only Sun Fac from this set that got a re-release in the main line for the Saga collection.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that was sort of a precursor to the battle packs.
Yeah.
In many ways.
Yeah, no, you're right. And that was another assortment here in Saga Collection, which was battle packs. And these began, I think, in during the Revenge of the Sith line, like 2005, where basically they meant to give you a bunch of figures in one go. You get 4 or 5 figures for like $20. They're kind of value sets, but they were pretty darn awesome because they had some really elaborate backgrounds like in the boxes to make it really look like a scene. Yeah. Just to list the ones that are here, Battle Above the Sarlacc, Jedi versus Darth Sidious, Sith Lord Attack. These are all repacks, and some of the figures are really quite old, but It was a nice, cost-effective way to get a bunch of figures at once.
Yeah.
Some of them were really like retold and really like a little bit newer, like Mace Windu's Attack Battalion. This was a Target exclusive in the US, and this was a fun one. Steve, did you get this one? This is like one of my favorite battle packs they ever did.
Yeah, I had this one. This was when I found out that it was coming. This was a must-have for me, because it was at this time that I was absolutely enamored by Clone Troopers, and I'm pretty sure it was this. This was the first set that we got that Airborne Trooper sculpt before the 212 Airborne Trooper was released in the 30th anniversary collection.
Yes.
So it was sort of a nice little tease of the figure that was to come later on. But yeah, I had this set, and another Clone Trooper battle pack that was an absolute must-have, and it was a Toys R Us exclusive here in the UK as well. Was the Hunt for Grievous from the Clone Wars.
Yeah, and even like the regular clones in here, like, they're purple, which, Mace's theme is I guess is purple. But like they added like the Commander Bakara style like shoulder pauldron to the clones. And then they have the antennas on the back, because it's super articulated sculpt, but they're just really fresh. Like, even though they have the same like markings as the Shock Trooper, basically. Yeah. It was just like an awesome set, and of course Mace Windu's in there too.
I really miss those Hasbro creations where they just sort of go out on their own and create figures based on characters that didn't exist in any Star Wars media at the time.
Yeah, so they would never do that now.
No, but it's something that they did continue into the sort of 30th anniversary collection and stuff like that. So it would have been nice if they'd have, kept going with that.
For sure.
But yeah, I think some of the Clone Trooper packs in particular were some of the best battle packs that Hasbro put out.
Totally. Skirmish in the Senate, that was another awesome battle pack. This is a Target exclusive, and what was great about this one is for the first time they gave us the Shock Trooper sculpt on the super articulated body, or the Shock Trooper paint on the super articulated body, I should say. And then it came with Revenge of the Sith, Emperor, and Yoda. But the really cool thing here was you got a Senate pod. And it's a little bit small, but this is the only way we ever received that particular, would you call it a vehicle? Kind of, right? Because they move around. But I still display mine because I just think it's a really cool little accessory, and it's just a fun little like display option for your figures.
It is, and it goes back to that value for money aspect that you used to get around this time as well, because you think £20 $20 for a pack like this where you're getting 4 figures and a large accessory, that this would run you up about 45 today, if not more, given the fact that these figures, are around $15-16 pounds.
Oh yeah.
So it's crazy to look back and think how affordable so much of this stuff was back in the day.
I know, it's crazy. I mean, these retailed at just see what it says here. These retailed for $19.99. I mean, it's
crazy.
It's crazy the value that you got back then for quality like this. Wow. And then the Toys R Us exclusively, the last one is they had the Hunt for Grievous, which you mentioned a little while ago. Now this, as I recall, this right here was the battle pack of 2006.
Yep. Definitely. It was based on that awesome scene at the end of the first season of the original Clone Wars, the Genndy Tartakovsky Clone Wars from Cartoon Network. And it's another one of those where the figures are amazing, but the box just looks awesome. Yeah. That's a display piece in itself.
It's super, super cool. And this was meant to tie in with the Republic gunship that was released as part of this from the micro series, right? That they had it in the US. It was at Toys R Us exclusively, but they had this battle pack to tie in with that, so that you could put these figures inside the gunship, and basically you're getting 5 ARC troopers, and there's like is it Captain Fordo, and then you have 3 of them are repainted from the micro series line from 2003, but then you also have this more unique one who is like the heavy gunner.
Yeah.
and that one was the first time that we got him was in this set. But yeah, this was a really cool one. I love this set. I know that the sculpts are outdated. I know that we've gotten so much, better. There's like an amazing photo from the vintage collection, but I still love these guys.
Yeah, for the time as well. It was just, and that's another thing I really miss is the fact that they used to bring out figures or battle packs that corresponded with vehicles and vice versa, and that whole just the playability was just there.
It was.
You getting figures to fit inside vehicles that they were releasing at the same time. Just everything just merged together, and there was just this overall product synergy that I really, really miss it.
I do too. It was the coordination. It was just everything was just so well thought out. Oh, we're releasing this, and you're gonna get this to go along with it, or you're gonna be able to flesh out this scene with these figures, and we just don't see that now. Like, thinking about recent things in the vintage collection, there's been like the carbon freezing chamber and the Tana V4 corridor. It's like those are great, but they're not releasing the figures you need to put into the scenes. So
exactly.
That would never have been the case back during this era. I mean, if you were getting something like this, you'd have everything you needed to flesh it out. So I really do miss that too. Let's talk about vehicles, shall we?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So there was the more general release vehicles, the smaller ones, $19.99 price point. Some of these were carry forwards, like Anakin Starfighter. This is the ROTS one, back again. Droid Tri-Fighter, same thing. General Grievous's wheel bike, that one had already been out too. Obi-Wan Starfighter, these are all carry forwards from the Revenge of the Sith line. Assault vehicles, there's Darth Vader's Starfighter. This one had come out a couple times before. Mace Windu's Jedi Starfighter was obviously the same sculpt we had, but now it was like purple and like a gunmetal silver. That one was new, and of course, if you were getting that battle pack we were talking about, you were gonna need this to go along with it, right?
Definitely. The only problem with this was the fact that the Mace Windu figure that was available at the time wouldn't sit down, so you couldn't get him inside the Starfighter.
Yeah, the great old sculpted robes. Let's see. Target exclusive vehicles. Let's see. They had the TIE Fighter. This was the larger TIE Fighter that they had with the bigger wings. So, higher price point. It says $39.99. And it was more of the blue color. I think I had this one. No, I did. I do have this one. What am I saying? I did have it. I do have it. I don't display it though. Since we got the vintage collection one, I like the color better on that one. It's like gray instead of blue. But this one is still cool. Target had the Imperial Shuttle. Did you guys get this version of the Imperial Shuttle over there?
Yeah, we did. This was a Toys R Us exclusive over here in the UK, and this is one that I actually picked up. The Imperial Shuttle and the AT-AT were two of my favourite vehicles. So to see it finally get re-released, because I've never had an Imperial Shuttle up until this point, and so to get it re-released was just awesome. And I think this today is the definitive version of the shuttle, because the paint on it was just so well done. It was ever so slightly weathered. It was definitely the more realistic. It was a complete repaint of the vintage Imperial Shuttle from '83, but it was just so well painted. It's definitely the most realistic interpretation that we've had of it so far. I've actually sold this one on since, which I again massively regret. But it's a great looking vehicle.
I completely agree with you. This is easily the best version that is available, the Imperial Shuttle. Like you said, based on the vintage mold. So I feel like it is a little bit flimsy. And it's also a little bit awkward because just the way that it's just so big. It's hard to... it's huge, but there's not a lot of playability in terms of like the cockpit, because that's really compact. But I think the middle section of it actually opens up, and you can put a few more figures in there. But like you're saying, the detail on it is really nice. I talk sometimes about, getting a new Imperial shuttle. I think it'd have to be a HasLab at this point, but
Yeah.
I think for all intents and purposes, this is a really big vehicle, and if they never came out with another one, I'd be okay with just owning this one.
Mm-hmm.
And also this one I did pick this one up at Target when it came out. It was very limited. The stores didn't get very many of them. I really had to hunt for it. I ended up calling a Target way across town. This is when I still lived in San Antonio, Texas. And I called this Target and they said, yeah, we got one more. And I said, can you please hold it for me? Please, please. And they said, sure, come on by and pick it up. So after work, I went straight over there and I got it. And I was so happy. So happy. And then we have Kit Fisto's Jedi Starfighter, another Target exclusive, another repaint. It's basically green with this little orange droid. Pretty cool looking. We have Rogue 2 Snowspeeder with Zev Seneska. So this is another older sculpt before they did the Vintage Collection one. Or the one that came after this. I think this was maybe the last time they used this particular sculpt. Is that correct?
I'm not sure because this is one that I never managed to pick up. I think up until the Vintage Collection, I never actually owned a Snowspeeder. So I think all the Snowspeeders that came prior to that, I have no idea which shared the same sculpt or which one was different. Or I remember seeing this in stores and thinking how cool it looked because it was another one of those vehicles where it was displayed in a box that was a scene in itself.
Yeah.
The box was basically Echo Base. I remember thinking how cool it was and the fact that I'd never owned a Snowspeeder, but it's just one that I never got around to picking up.
Yeah.
But again, just looking back, wish I had.
Yeah. To be honest with you, I don't have a Snowspeeder either. Not in 3 3/4 inch. And I massively regret not having the last one that came out. I think it was here, I'll take a quick look here. Okay, so this was this was Shadows of the Dark Side rather than I don't know if they did one for Vintage Collection. I'm actually blanking on that, but Shadows of the Dark Side was from 2010. They did like a new sculpt for the Snowspeeder.
Yeah, it was that Shadows of the Dark Side Snowspeeder that was released in the Vintage Collection. It was sort of just a running change to the packaging that they did.
Nice. Yeah, I regret not having that. I hope that they you would assume, but you can't really say that with Vintage Collection these days because you never know what they're going to bring back. But I would have to assume that they'd bring that one back because that's kind of an important one. We'll see. And then let's see. Millennium Falcon 2005. So this looks
like it never got released.
This is a temporary preview page for this upcoming product. More official details will be added after it is released. Huh. That is, that is an interesting one.
Yeah, because I've got no record. That packaging doesn't ring a bell.
I've never seen.
I don't recall that. I don't recall that version of the Falcon ever getting re-released past 2004.
Yeah, or the Plo Koon's Jedi Starfighter, because I think that's Revenge of the Sith. It says on there in that picture. That's an interesting one. It says Toys R Us exclusive, but yeah, I agree with you. I don't know if that ever made it out. Let's see, Endor AT-AT, another Target exclusive. This was the previous AT-AT sculpt, but this was kind of cool because they had never released one based on Endor up to that point. So It's got like the mud on its feet. It's kind of a little bit of a different color. And I know that one did make it out. I didn't pick up that one. I have the Vintage Collection one, but not that previous one. Toys R Us had Luke's X-Wing. This one I did get. This one was actually a fun one because it has all the moss and stuff on it from the Dagobah Swamp. And it's also got the dragon snake, which this always kind of was weird to me because I never imagined that the dragon snake creature looked like this. And when I watched the film, to me, it's more like a whale looking thing.
Yeah.
I don't.
It seems a lot bigger, doesn't it, in the film?
Yeah, like this is just like a. I don't know. I don't know if this is something Hasbro designed or how they arrived at this particular design, but it's cool, but it's just such a weird looking creature.
Yeah, definitely.
But this was a cool one because, it did have all the moss on it. And unfortunately, my dog, who, I talked to you about earlier, she ate one of the moss pieces, or, just completely destroyed one of the pieces. So, but, it's not the kind of thing I'm going to buy again just to get one of the moss pieces replaced for. And then it had Luke Skywalker in it. There's a TIE Fighter from 2006. Now, this is basically the one that we talked about earlier, but this one has the more silvery sort of deco to it. Mm-hmm. And the last vehicle is something we mentioned earlier. This is the Republic gunship with the Clone Wars Micro Series deco in that beautiful, what do they call that? They call it I think some people call it
Tiger Shark.
Tiger Shark, yeah. Sort of aesthetic. And I think it's still the most beautiful gunship that they ever did.
Yeah. And it's another one that fetches a hefty price on eBay nowadays.
Yeah.
It's a really pricey item to get a hold of, which really makes me regret my decision to chop this one in half.
It's gorgeous. The packaging's gorgeous. I have it. I've never opened it. I've opened it to inspect it. I've never put it on display, but it's been 15 years. I think I should get around to doing that soon.
The longer you leave it, though, the harder it gets.
Yeah. I think I'm going to pull it out one of these days. And then that basically just takes us to Miscellaneous. Let's see, Mr. Potato Head, R2 Potato. I actually still have that. I my mom is actually the one that convinced me. Like when Darth Vader came out the year before, she's like, "You need to get those." Like, all right, Mom, I'll get it. And there was a Stormtrooper, and I know later they came out with all these other ones, and I kind of just stopped after R2 Potato. But I didn't get anything else that came out after that. But
no, I never grabbed anything like that either.
Yeah, they're just random and they're fun, but. Yeah, that's basically it, Steve. I don't see anything else here. Do you?
No, I think everything else just pretty much covers like the cards and the hologram figures that we touched base on earlier. So I think that just about wraps it up.
Yeah, and this was an era where these toy lines just became so massive. The Saga collection, the 30th anniversary, the Legacy collection. Those lines were just so expansive, unlike anything we had ever seen before. Which think, okay, Star Wars is winding down. The prequels are over, but no, it was the opposite. Like the toy line just really ramped up the production on all kinds of things.
Yeah.
And, it was hard to collect it all at the time. I wasn't able to collect it all. I mean, I got most of the figures from the lines at the time, but like the vehicles and stuff, there's just no way I was ever going to be able to get every single repaint of every Jedi Starfighter or every TIE Fighter, or what have you. That was just quite impossible for me to do.
Yeah. It's interesting that you say that as well about how at the time we did, like you say, we did think Star Wars was winding down, but the toy line was getting ramped up. And now it's almost like things have flip reversed because we've got Star Wars at a time where I don't think there's ever been more Star Wars media than there is now. Mm-hmm. And the toy line seems to be massively scaled back. And it's just really interesting that, you've got this litany of different multimedia projects that Hasbro could dip into and make products from, and we just don't have it. Yeah. And it's weird to think that at this time when there were, after 2005, there were no new movies. There were very few, there was very, very, very little in the way of television. Not that much of note that I remember anyway in terms of comic books and stuff. And I suppose at the time video games was probably the biggest well that they had to dip into, but the amount of product that they were putting out at that time compared to the amount of material that we had in film and television was, it was massively different to what it is now.
Yeah, 100%. Very different climate for what Hasbro was willing to put out there. And it's just insane. Like, I mean, it took us 2 hours basically to go over the line. And like I said, we couldn't even really go into detail on most of the stuff. We couldn't even pinpoint each and every figure because it's just, we'd be here for 5 hours, doing that.
I was just about to say, I think you need to give Dan Curter a little bit of warning ahead of time that he might be here a while if you're talking about the 30th anniversary collection, because that pretty much doubled in size.
Yes.
When we compare it to the Saga collection.
Yeah, that might have to be a two-parter or something.
Yeah.
So, pretty crazy. And also, The last thing I wanted to do, Steve, was go over our top 5 favorite figures from the Saga collection line.
Okay.
So I don't know that mine are in any particular order. I'll try and order them, from least favorite to most favorite. This was a hard one for me because there's a lot of figures in here that I like. So it's kind of hard for me to select just 5, but I did my best. I'm going to go with 5. And let's go ahead and start with your number 5 pick.
Okay, so we'll do it in the same way and I'll do it from least favorite to favorite. My top 5 of the figures that I picked up, at least. I mean, my top 5 would probably be figures that I didn't actually pick up. But of the figures that I picked up, my number 5, I think, is probably Garandon.
Oh, nice.
Or Long Snoot, because it's a figure that I wanted when it was available in Power of the Force, a figure I never managed to get around to. I've always been a massive fan of the background aliens, so to get a re-released one around this time anyway was really good. And he comes in at number 5 for me.
Yeah, good pick. And I totally agree that the Power of the Force one doesn't hold a candle to the Saga Collection version. So, and we didn't mention earlier, but the cloak that comes on Garandon is actually the same cloak that came in the 2003 Jedi Luke figure. It's the same cloak. So pretty fun little detail. So my number 5 is Kiddick Keed Kak. And this is something that's a name that I can write out without even having to refer to it. And
well, you can get all the apostrophes in the right place as well. Wow.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, I know that's really useless information. It's really silly, but so with regards to this figure, I know that it is very minimally articulated. I think it has 3 POA really. I think the shoulders and the skirt piece can be rotated. It's basically a little statue, but in terms of my logic for this one, it's a praying mantis in a hula skirt. What need I say more? It's fun. Those Cantina aliens were obviously, a lot of them were based on like Earth type creatures and, just more anthropomorphic type, things that they did with them. And for me, this was just a fun one because I know that they could make this one a lot better like today, and I doubt that they ever will. But for me, it's just a super fun figure to have in the Cantina diorama. I just love her. I think she's great.
Yeah.
Okay, so your number 4 pick.
My number 4 pick probably comes from the middle of the line, and it's the Death Star Gunner. Just going back to what we said when we were running through the figures from the main line, I just love the fact that it's 2 figures in one. I love the fact that he comes with all these removable parts. You've got the vest that comes off. You've got the helmet that can be removed. And again, going back to what I said about the head underneath being a clone trooper head sculpt on an Imperial body, that was just mind-blowing at the time. That these 2 eras were getting crossed over. And just and like I say, even by today's standards, that figure still holds up in some respects. Sure, it's missing a few ball joints here and there, but from a sculpting perspective, it's still a great looking figure. Yeah,
no, totally. It doesn't. Was that the first time that we got a clone trooper helmet on an Imperial figure?
I think so. Yeah, I think there might have been there was the commemorative tin set. That came with a sand trooper at one point with a removable helmet, and that had a clone trooper head sculpt underneath, but I can't remember whether that was around the same time as this line or just before or just after.
I think after, right? Those tin sets I think were 30th anniversary.
Yeah. Sounds about right.
Yeah, cool. So my number 4 pick is R4K5. This is Darth Vader's astromech droid. I mentioned earlier how this was in the book, Dark Lord, the Rise of Darth Vader. That was this ties into the Vader Sith starfighter that appeared in that book too, but didn't come out until the first vehicle wave of the 30th anniversary collection. But I like this droid because, well, yeah, it's Darth Vader's astromech, which I think is kind of neat, but something about the way they painted it, like it's not just like black, right? Like there's multiple shades of black on the figure. Yeah. And even the dome, they found a way to do the metallic sort of quality to it without using metallic paint it doesn't look dull and it doesn't look like too shiny. I don't really know what they did, but It just looks really convincing to me. It looks pretty film accurate if it were to appear in the film. But yeah, that's my number 4. I really like that Astromictroid quite a bit.
Yeah, it is a cool one.
All right, so your number 3.
My number 3 is Momo. I can never pronounce his first name correctly. Momo Naden, or Hammerhead. This is a figure that for me it's one of my favorite aliens from the Cantina. And this is probably still to this day one of my favorite Cantina alien figures. The articulation's lacking, but from a visual standpoint, it just looks amazing. The detail on it is fantastic. The paint applications are so lifelike and realistic. It's just such a good looking figure.
Yeah.
And the accessories that come with it as well are really, really good. Anything that allows you to, do that whole world building thing with the Cantina and areas like that within Star Wars is always a winner for me. And Hammerhead just ticks all the boxes. He looks great and comes with some great stuff.
Yeah, I can't disagree with you there. My number 3 pick is Bib Fortuna. And like I said, this is the last time we got Bib Fortuna in the modern line. He's not perfect. He's actually a little chunky and kind of looks like he looked in Mandalorian. But he's pretty expressive, and I think that's one of the things I like about it. Just he looks kind of like he's like snarling a little bit, and then the paint that they gave to his head, he's got like a really nice almost like a teal colored wash to him that really highlights some of that detail. The articulation isn't that great, but just like the color of the outfit and the shelf presence, I think is pretty great. Like I know that we desperately want another Bib Fortuna, but this one still seems to hold up. I still have him like behind Jabba the Hutt on my shelf, and I'm pretty happy with him. I know that, we all want a new one, but I think that this one, still looks pretty good.
Yeah, definitely. I think that he was definitely the one he was a tied choice for me between Hammerhead and Bib Fortuna. It was difficult to pick between the two. But I remember I got Hammerhead a lot earlier than I got Bib Fortuna. It's only within the last maybe 5 or 6 years that I've been able to pick up Bib Fortuna. And I think just because, we are so desperate for a new one that he didn't make it onto the list. But as a figure, like you said, I can't argue that. He does look great, and he's definitely, like you said, he's got that shelf presence. He really does look very good. That's one of the things that I missed from Hasbro as well, is the fact that they don't include facial expressions in their figures anymore. They're all just got the same stoic expression. Mouth closed, looking straight ahead. You never get these sort of, these gnarly grimaces anymore.
Yeah, ain't that the truth? So what is your number 2?
My number 2 is a joint. So I'm kind of cheating here, and I'm putting 2 figures in at the number 2 spot. But my joint number 2 is Commander Appo and the elite core clone trooper from the Kashyyyk scout trooper, if you will. These are just because these are 2 of the figures that I remember picking up the most from this line. The 2 of the figures that I remember picking up and being the most excited about. The sculpts still hold up. The paint is incredibly done. Even though that scout trooper isn't particularly movie accurate, like we were saying earlier on, the fact that we've got this Imperial scout trooper painted up in clone trooper colors that's meant to represent a clone trooper, it's just that blend of worlds again that I really like. And that I feel like this line did so well. But I just, like I said, I just remember picking these figures up and being absolutely ecstatic that I found them. And I love clone troopers, so they came in at my joint number 2.
Nice, very nice. So this one was a tough one for me. For my number 2, I was going back and forth between Commander Appo, like you just mentioned, and this one right here, which is the one I ultimately went with, and that's one of the clones from the Mace Windu's Attack Battalion set. And this is just basically the regular purple Mace Windu clone trooper that has the Commander Bacara shoulder pauldron. I just love this figure. I mean, I think, these are obviously Hasbro creations, but they did a beautiful job with the paint. You have like the gray stripes on them, and then you have like the purple markings, but like on the chin, like on the helmet, they actually did like some sort of metallic purple that's pretty reflective and shiny. And then they put some silver details on the pauldron as well. And I don't know. It's just a really gorgeous looking figure. It's very unique. We never got anything like this again. We never will get anything like this again because Hasbro made it up. But I just love those. So I had to end up ultimately going with that version.
Yeah, good choice.
And now it's time for your number one pick.
It was a tricky one, but I had to go with my heart over my gut, and it's purely for nostalgic purposes, and just the fact that even to this day I absolutely love this design. It's the ATAT driver. I know we've had a lot of, I say we've had a lot. We've only had one ATAT driver figure since this one was released, and that came in the Legacy collection. But for the time that this figure was released, like we said earlier, it was the first one that was released since the 90s and the Power of the Force 2 line. Mm-hmm. The sculpt at the time was amazing. Swivel cut elbows aside, the articulation is pretty much spot on. And I just love the sculpt of it. It's just a really, really well-made figure. It looks great. The proportions are all there. The details are all there. I think the chest box and the helmet are two of the most detailed elements of a Star Wars figure that I've ever seen. And yeah, like I said, I've just always been a massive fan of ATAT drivers and ATATs in general. So to finally get one of these back in 2006 was the peak of my Star Wars collecting hobby at that time. And I've got a couple of these in the collection now because I love them so much. So like I said, they've improved upon it since then, but for the time, this was definitely number one for me.
Nice. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's very solid, and the pieces that it comes with, and just the playability, for that is really cool. I'm a fan of that one too. So great pick. As for my number one, this is one that you mentioned earlier, and this has always been my favorite Cantina alien. When they updated him in 2006, I was over the moon. I was overjoyed to actually find him at Walmart, like I mentioned to you earlier. And that's Moma Nadon, Hammerhead. And I just think it's an exquisitely detailed figure. It is beautiful. And although it lacks the articulation that we've become accustomed to in the present day, I don't really feel like it needs all that much. Just to have him like standing in your Cantina diorama, this one's all about the shelf presence. It looks so film accurate. Just the way that they sculpted the head, the way they painted the head and the costume. I love the texturing they did to his shirt or his robes, whatever you want to call those. The little staff, which, is interesting because he didn't have that in the film, but it's a nice little thing that they included. The little bar table, the little glass that he can hold perfectly in his left hand. And then of course the packaging on him is beautiful, with the Cantina band in the background. And this is one of my favorite figures in the entire like modern Star Wars line. And if they gave us a new one, I wouldn't care if it had all the articulation in the world if it didn't look as good as this one did. Like that's what this figure has going for it the most, is just how gorgeous it is, the aesthetics of it. It was leaps and bounds ahead of the Power of the Force one that we got. And I just love it. If we get a new one, and I hope we do, it just needs to look at least as good or even better than this one, because this is a stellar release. I absolutely love this figure.
Yeah, it's a tough act to follow, I think, if they ever do get around to updating it. I don't think, other than added articulation, there's very little they could do to improve this one.
Yeah, he's awesome. Love this one. Well, Steve, I think we've done a pretty good job at covering the Saga collection. We're at 2 hours and 20 minutes in. I think that's probably holds the record for the longest Cantina Chatter episode I've ever done. But I mean, it's all good stuff. I mean, we did a really good job, I think, of detailing so many of the figures that made up this line, the various assortments, our top 5 favorite figures. I mean, clearly the Saga collection holds a special place in both of our hearts, it sounds like.
Yeah, definitely.
There was so much great stuff that came out of it, so much memorable stuff. And, I'm glad that we were around at a time where we got, a toy line like that was just so rich in character selection and, had so many vehicles, so many exclusives, and so many figures, because it was a great time to be a collector. And, I'm kind of jealous that we had such a good time back in the past. And, we didn't realize at the time how good we had it. And so thank you. Thank you for coming onto the show and
no worries.
Breaking down the Saga collection with me. I'm glad we finally got around to to doing it. And totally worth it. I had a blast, and I hope you did too.
Yeah, it's been fun. Really, really fun to take a trip down memory lane and have a look back at some of these figures, because there's a lot of stuff that, like I said, from this line that I didn't pick up. There's a lot of stuff that I have, but maybe forgot how good it was until we really broke it down and took a look at it. So yeah, it's been really fun and nostalgic. And like I said, I'm off to eBay now to go and empty my contents of my wallet to pick up some of these figures that I missed out on all those years ago.
I was just going to say the same thing, actually. Like, I'm going to go take a peek at eBay. What time is it over there in the UK?
It's 10 to 11 in the morning here, so just starting off my day. But like we were saying at the beginning, I don't think I'm going to be doing much today because we're snowed in. So it might be time to take the ATA out in the garden and shoot a few Hoth scenes for Instagram. Nice.
I'll be looking forward to that. Over here, it's 2:50 a.m., 2:50 in the morning, so it's a little past my bedtime. But these podcasts are always can be tricky, especially when the people that I am talking to are in different parts of the world, like you are. But no, completely worth it. I had fun. Steve, tell us where our listeners can go to look you up online.
So I always like to say that I'm pretty much everywhere.com/SithLord229. I'm on YouTube at SithLord229, Facebook and Twitter. Twitter and Instagram, I'm at the SithLord229. So go and check me out over there.
Awesome. So yeah, definitely check Steve out. Like I said, he's been around a long time. I love everything you do, Steve. So keep up the awesome content.
Thank you very much.
And and I look forward to talking to you again here on the show.
Definitely. Thank you for having me on.
Anytime. And that's a wrap for this episode. Victoria's Cantina began on YouTube, and you can find plenty of toy content on the Victoria's Cantina YouTube channel. We are also on Instagram, showcasing toy photography at Victoria's Cantina, as well as Facebook at Victoria's Cantina, and on Twitter, ranting and raving about toys and other nonsense at Vic's Cantina. For fun and random toy clips, follow us on TikTok at Victoria's Cantina. Got a question or something you'd like to share with us? Drop us a line in the fax machine. You can email victoriascantina@yahoo.com. If you are so inclined and wish to drop a coin in the tip jar, we are on Patreon, where you can gain greater access to the channel while helping to keep the content rolling. For VC branded merchandise such as t-shirts, ball caps, mugs, and other fun stuff, visit us on Spring and TeePublic. Links to all of these magical places can be found in the show notes. Do you got a minute or two? If you are listening on Apple Podcasts, please leave us a 5-star rating and drop a brief review explaining why you enjoy the show. As always, I'm Victoria, and no matter where you're listening out in the galaxy, I'd like to thank you for tuning in to the Cantina Chatter Podcast.